And just a reminder, if this is the first match that you are watching in the IM GM Speed Chess Championship, what is wrong with you? But on a serious note, we do have the format in front of us, and that is 75 minutes of 5-minute with 1 second increment blitz, followed by 45 minutes of 3+1, followed up by 25 minutes of bullet chess, 1 minute plus 1 second increment. This is a single elimination knockout. It's April Madness, brought to you by Chess.com. And the winner makes it to the next round of the bracket, but our bracket is pretty, untouched thus far, with the exception of the top 2 seeds winning their matches by a handy margin. The results, I would say, on paper do not necessarily match what happened over the board. But Danya, as we see John Bartholomew and Levy Rosman move on to the second round, what do you anticipate in this particular matchup between Elena Kashlinskaya and Krzysztof Sielecki?
Well, there's a counterbalancing force here between the fact that we all know and love Krzysztof's videos on Chess Explained. He's very experienced. He's been around the block, so to speak. He's played the likes of Hikaru. He used to play in the ICC days. Tremendous experience. Alina, of course, incredibly strong player, but definitely less Blitz experience. But I heard she beat this guy, Robert Hess, in Title II, but that was purely a rumor, right? That didn't actually happen, because I wouldn't be commentating with someone who lost to a participant in the IM Not a GM tournaments.
It's very amusing that she remembered it as that I won the game, but I know for a fact she won. She did win that game, and that goes to show. We say this every time we have one of these broadcasts. These international masters have dedicated their lives to this game. They're incredible players, and maybe over the course of a long match, that's when you see grandmasters separate themselves. But in any single game, you have to be have your eye out for these players. And speaking our eyes out for the players, I'm ready for this match to begin, and I cannot wait, because I'm not really sure who I see as the favorite. I would probably go with Alina.
She would as well.
Yeah, she's just playing over the board much more. Krzysztof isn't an over-the-board player these days. He's much more invested in his video series and being a teacher. And he's a great teacher. I actually watched a Chess Explained video in preparation for this match on the Nimzo Rogozin. So I actually will have to talk to Krzysztof about that. But this is going to be a good match, that's for sure. And we'll see if Krzysztof can shake off some of that rust. And for Alina, her over-the-board successes will translate to online chess.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think in the 5-minute portion, that is where Alina can really make the push, because as we've established previously, that's a pretty long time control. That's a very extensive amount of time. And over the board skill translates. You can take a couple of moments to think, even for a minute, 2 minutes. So that's where she needs to make the push. And we'll see if she does, as they are off.
And I'm not surprised to see Krzysztof playing a calmer opening, right? When you play knight f3, g3, bishop g2, you're not really creating a tension in the center, right? You're just waiting for your opponent to make a decision. In this case, Alina played c5, and Krzysztof immediately snaps it off the board. And Danya, what do you make of this opening so far? Do you think that this is something that Krzysztof will do throughout the match, just a calmer approach?
Yeah, I mean, I think Krzysztof is going to play these calm openings. I don't remember what he plays with black, but with white, it's important to realize these openings are not innocuous. He's very well versed in these positional lines. I think he's going to stick to them. To answer your question, Robert, he's going to funnel a lot of these games into these calm, Grunfeld-like, hedgehoggy positional waters, where I think he feels very comfortable. He's experienced. He's older, so definitely he's going to aim for exactly these types of positions, I think.
Yeah, and actually, if you think about it stylistically, I know when I'm covering all these different players that if there's a player who's more aggressive or tactical, playing a position like this when they have the black piece, in this case Alina does, look at this, d5, that kind of pawn break, not able to be played by black. And if you ever play e5 or a move like a5, you're giving up control of some important squares, b5 and d5. So this slower approach often frustrates players. And we're getting a Maroczy bind type of setup. The pawn is not on e4 yet. It may eventually go to e4. And then you'll see that full bind where white has control of b5, d5, and black's pieces don't have clearly optimal squares to speak of just yet.
Yeah, this move a5, you pointed out the b5 square. There's actually a very legitimate idea in these positions to put a knight on b5 just so it sits there. It's a better parking spot than you can find in all of Manhattan. And to basically stop black from playing e6 and t5. So that's a pretty serious positional weakness. At the same time, Alina trying to get a5, a4 thrust in, maybe. That's sort of a King's Indian kind of idea. So as you said, she definitely is more tactical. She wants to unbalance the position, even maybe at the cost of objectivity. And here we see a4.
Yeah. And Alina also is an exceptionally well-prepared player. So taking her out of mainline theory could be a good strategy for Kristoff. And I know that from experience because at the 2018 Isle of Man International, I was seated next to Alina when she was playing Grandmaster Nicholas Huschenbeth. And I don't think I've ever seen someone play so many moves of theory so quickly as she did in that game. And then in the final round of that tournament, she crushed Sam Sevian. So she had an amazing tournament there. I believe she drew both Geary and Krumnik in the opening rounds. So took some scalps, drew some huge names. And Alina Kashlinskaya, I mean, she's a very, very strong player. And, maybe she does have that a little bit, that element of, I need to open up the position. I don't want to sit and relax. But I think thus far she's taken a very strategically normal approach. And we'll see if White will be able to play this B4 move, kicking that knight back from C5 and trying to just keep those pawns pushing forward. The problem with playing B4 is in the C4 pawn becomes a potential target, but you do like the scope of this bishop on G2, and rook A6 caught me by surprise there.
Creative. Well, you mentioned Alina's performance in the Isle of Man. Should we say that, might we even say that she was cash in that tournament? Kashlinskaya. The first of the day, Robert.
Oh my gosh.
You got to give me a pass on that one. It's the first one of the day.
Did you listen at all or replay the commentary with Vidit yesterday where he was just doing pun after pun after pun?
Snippets of it, yeah. Well, it's good to know that my best sides have rubbed off on, our chess elites.
Well, I'm going to change the subject completely because...
Please do.
Well, it's not really
Let's do something like the daily question, something wholesome.
Well, I wanted to change the subject. We're going to go to the daily question because it's so topical. It is, well... You should ask the question because you're the pun master between the two of us.
So the question is, surprisingly, what is the best chess pun you can come up with? And it's definitely not Alina was cash in that tournament. I think the viewers can do better. I can do a little bit better, but that is a challenge. That is a glove that I am personally throwing down to each and every one of you watching. What is the best chess pun you can come up with? Let's hear some good ones.
I had a high school classmate named Cash, so the money,
I did too, actually.
The money is run out. Can't hear all these cash jokes anymore. I'm done. I thought I was over it.
I was imagining Alina, with Kashlinskaya with like a dollar sign through the S.
Oh, that would be pretty sweet. I'm here for that. But right now she's here for the open A file and C5. I was waiting for that move to be played because the bishop on G2 and now the rook on B1 are trying to team up on that pawn. She drops her queen back. And the great thing about this rook on A6 is it defends the D6 pawn. So if you try to take on D6, the rook will recapture, and that way you don't have to isolate your own pawn structure. And, well, B5 is something that I would consider immediately for White, just trying to kick this rook off the 6th rank. But maybe there's even exchange sacrifices on A1. Not now. I wouldn't go for that now because there's too many trades happening, and the white queen gets the A file and eventually the A8 square. So that's not advisable just yet. But sometimes you can get away with an exchange sack on A1 if you are able to get another pawn.
95 though played by Kristoff, and mass trades going on. I feel like the position might fizzle out here because, for example, if that C pawn is traded for the B pawn, we get a mass liquidation on the queen side. But Alina's got to be careful here because, for example, okay, maybe bishop, but now queen D4 check. And maybe black can get away with E5. Kristoff takes on D6. I don't know what's going on here, but these B5 thrusts with B takes A6 to follow, that's, there's some tactical ideas here in the air. So maybe Alina should just take with a queen.
But and queen takes, if we see this liquidation, B5 is when bishop takes G2, pawn takes A6.
And AB7, very nice.
And AB7 at the end, and that's a pass pawn that black is going to regret seeing on the board.
And look what's going on. If Alina can't win that pawn on C7.
She got it.
But she does.
She's just going to go around it. But actually, I want to take us back in time a little bit here, because if we go back to when bishop takes G7 occurred, there was this very typical idea with knight to E3, like after bishop G7. And that way you're losing your knight anyway from D5, but by going knight E3, you're forking the queen on D1, the rook on F1. And if pawn takes E3, then king takes G7. That's a thematic idea, but the problem in this position is perhaps the F7 pawn is so weak. So queen D5 would then be a double attack. So just something to keep an eye on for these tactics. This was not overlooked. It was smart to not play for a thing that ruins white's pawn structure, but ruins black's position because of the open F file.
Yeah, and actually I'm thinking if king E4, black is the one who needs to make a couple precise moves in this endgame, because these rook endgames are dictated quite often by king activity. And Kristoff's king is already in the center. I'm absolutely convinced it's a draw. Maybe rook b7 or rook b5 just to create a little fortress. But then that rook can, if the king comes to c4, the rook can come around through a1 to a6, for example. Alina trying to cut the king off via d7. Maybe she'll park it on d6. That seems very sensible indeed.
She can also go to d2. So if rook c1, then rook d2. Then we have to calculate, wait, what happens to rook c6, rook takes e2 check? We're getting an imbalance here. Instead of a symmetrical or mostly symmetrical pawn structure, now white will have a pass pawn on the queen side, black will have an extra pawn on the e file. And so that would be a situation that Alina clearly wants to avoid. She instead is running her king over to the defense of the c pawn. Then her rook is freed up, and the white king is better placed. So it's not a dead draw just yet. And I like what Kristoff is doing. G4, he'll go h4, gain space in the position, and f5 as a counter blow here by Alina. I think it's a very good decision to kick this king off its fourth rank. And now king d5 for black would be great, except rook c5 check would be the response. So, you're trying to jockey for position and...
just check?
What?
Isn't that mate? Oh, no, what am I talking about? I thought that was mate.
Hey, man, you know what? Vidit blunders checkmate in one. You think that there are checkmates in one that don't exist. So,
well, I thought about if black played e6, rook c5 would be mate.
Right. But
not that anybody had not that would merit an interruption. So please continue.
No, I'm done. Now that you interrupted me, I feel like I don't want to speak anymore.
I hurt your feelings.
You did. It's over. In fact, hey, can I get a replacement for Danya? Can I get Vidit back, or I don't know, anybody at this point?
Anybody's better than me. I'll just have to woo you with my Chess Explain impersonation, but I'll have to save that for a little bit later.
Wait, what was h5 by black? Somehow that feels wrong because the g5 square will be, if the white rook can eventually get to g5, then the h5 pawn is a goner. But after rook a5, rook e4, well, now the b4 pawn's too weak. So I think rook a5 may have been a little bit of a misstep, although likely it was just a draw regardless of what was done.
Well, now Alina's got to be careful. I mean, yeah, the thing is, there's too few targets, and here we see a draw being offered and being accepted. So, I feel kind of like they're two boxers, sort of. I don't watch boxing, so I'm going to butcher this reference, but, they're just kind of feeling things out. Nobody throwing any big punches yet. Just throwing a couple small jabs. What do you think about the first game? How does that set the tone and set the pace for the match?
I'm very curious to see what Alina does from the white side of this matchup, because I do think Kristoff will continue down that path. It looked for a bit there that he would actually get the upper hand in that first game. He was very smooth. He wasn't taking any big risks, avoiding tactics pretty much altogether. So for Alina, when she has the white pieces, she'll probably want to press a little more. It's not fun to be on the back foot throughout an entire match. So probably wants something with a little more bite, but she's taking some serious time here. Yes, not used to this early knight c6 move by Kristoff.
Yeah, I used to play this with black, putting the knight on c6. And at some point, you take on c3. I mean, you can be forced to. Alina might play queen c2 and then a3. But black says, okay, I'll give up that bishop, but I'll use that knight on c6 to prepare e5. So if a3 here, he'll probably take and go e5.
Yep.
Yep. And d5, and we get this very interesting position. I've had this hundreds of times against one Andrew Tang and Blitz and Bullet, this exact position, actually.
Hey, Danya, sorry to change the subject for a second, but
Please change the subject.
I'm going to make a prediction. I think that we are going to have many fewer laughs during this match. These two players are playing extremely solidly. And so I would, it's in good fun how we give a little slight ribbing to the players, and you actually prepared David Pruis, you gave him a lesson before his match. They're taking it very seriously, and we respect these players, but we're trying to have a good time as well. These players are so solid. Like the tactics that we like to say, hey, maybe they'll blunder a queen or a checkmate in one. I don't think we're going to get that today.
No, I mean, I agree. And I mean, Kristoff, we know to be a very, very solid player. He's, sometimes these players can be a little bit underrated. You think, he's older. He might not be playing over the board. He's solid as a rock. He's focused. He doesn't miss simple tactics. And Alina as well, very sound fundamentals, the Russian school of chess, of course, very well prepared. But yeah, I completely agree. I think they're both taking this very, very seriously. Not that anybody else didn't, but you know, these battles might be decided on more of a positional front. I mean, at least some of them. But I'm curious to see what will happen in the bullet section. Maybe there, you know, all pandemonium will break loose.
That's what I'm sort of hoping for. I don't want anyone to blunder, but it definitely will be fun to see how these players operate in bullet, because we have a sense of their blitz styles thus far. And I actually, Danya, this I think is a good topic, because when we play in classical tournaments, you know, over the board tournaments, long time control, there are different type of IMs to play. There's some IMs who you're like, okay, I need to be really alert for tactics, but I feel like I'll have the upper hand because, you know, maybe you're a higher rated player between the two. So you feel good if it becomes a tactical melee. And then the other players, you're like, darn, this player is so solid that, like, you know, I never even had a chance to get an advantage. So if I make a draw, I'm a little disappointed because I am the higher rated player, but like, what can you do? And these players are really giving off that impression of like, if I play them in a classical event, I'm like, where is their opening weakness? So far, they've been just playing really, I mean, we can only say it so much, but very precise chess and a type of style that I really appreciate.
No, I appreciate it as well. And it's clean. And you're absolutely right. I mean, I can remember many times, you know, especially with the black pieces, you get paired with someone, you're 2,400 maybe, you're supposed to beat them, but you look at their games and they're drawing all these 2,650 GMs. Christoph is definitely one of those players I would hate to face in like round 2 of an open tournament. You know what I mean? It's like he has such sound fundamentals. And Alina, as we know from Isle of Man, she can deal a blow to basically anybody.
Yep. I mean, they're both very good players. And I honestly am a little bit surprised this far by how quickly Christoph is playing. I wasn't expecting that. Part of it is that he's just not playing that much these days. He's more of a coach. And, you know, maybe it's also a little bit of a bias when you see players who maybe didn't grow up playing on the internet. You're like, okay, like they're going to be slower with the mouse. But right now he's up a minute on the clock in a position that I think is starting to go in Alina's favor. The bishop will have a spot on b4 to put pressure on this pawn on d6. And this knight on c6 has to go backwards. And it probably has to go to b8 at this point, because going to d8 will allow bishop b4. And after knight e8, it allows knight e4, and down goes your d6 pawn.
Yeah, good points. I mean, the c5 square is weakened, and that's sort of what one might pay attention to. But as you point out, Robert, bishop b4, the concrete sort of threats oftentimes outweigh these static weaknesses. But f4, I really like this approach. Very concrete. She understands that she's made a positional concession. At the same time, she's got to be careful, because if the knight lands on c5 and he cements it there, white might pay for her positional sins later on.
Yeah, I'm not sure I love the move f4 quite as much as you do, but the reason why I guess she didn't go for bishop b4, but just backtrack a second here, is that bishop b4 would have been by rook to d8. Now you don't have to play knight e8 to protect that pawn. And black actually has this really annoying move a5 coming up. So if you try some kind of rook f to d1 to put pressure on d6, the knight on b8 can't move to d7 without losing the d6 pawn, black can start with a5. And if you take en passant, b takes a6, knight takes a6, I get your bishop. And if you decide, hey, I'm going to move my bishop back, then comes knight d7 into c5, exactly what you were talking about, where that knight is a much happier piece.
Yeah, and Alina's got to pay attention to her clock as well. I don't want to make these games all about the time, but as we discussed in the Bartholomew Proust match, you can't get around it. No matter how you spin it, you know, the time situation is so important. She's got a minute 40. And you know, the game hasn't really reached a boiling point quite yet. I think they're approaching sort of the denouement of this game. Still, you know, the jabs haven't really been thrown yet.
No, they have not. And knight on e4, isolated pawn for white on e3, not that big of a weakness. You do have a dark square bishop. And now that the diagonal is open, watch out for a bishop b4 skewer. And even if it's not a skewer, it will be a good move. So trading on e4 makes sense, gives you the c5 square. Queen takes e5 doesn't work. So queen e5, bishop e5, knight d3, that's a fork. And you would think, well, my bishop and rook under attack, let me move my bishop to attack the rook on f8. Then rook f to d8, for instance, can be played, attacking the bishop and renewing this threat on the e1 rook.
I was going to say you really spoon-fed us this tactic that involved the fork, but then I just decided against it because that would really be a knife to this daily question. I mean, it's.
Can you just a knife to the heart is what it's.
I just need to go out. I need to breathe some of this North Carolinian air. Maybe it'll clean me off a little bit from these puns.
You know, a simple shower might do, but if you really need
that's done already though.
Oh, okay. Just
I
making
took one
sure.
before the broadcast.
It's good that your hygiene is up to the standards that my co-commentator requires. So
Of course,
Queen
of
H4
course.
by Alina. I like Christoph's position here. This pawn on C4 is actually just lost, right?
Knight A4 is a possibility, but there's not even a hurry out. My guess is knowing his style, Rook FD8 might follow.
Yeah, Rook FD8 being solid.
Oof.
And the reason why I think you were a little bit reluctant to allow this bishop B4 is now if this rook gets to D6, even though white lost a pawn, there's some clear activity here. And the queen on H5 is a clear example of the threat is stronger than the execution. There's nothing actually threatened, but you start getting in the back of your head, this queen on H5 is a bit worrisome. And Rook D2, I play Rook C1 as black, just to
yeah. Well, but you've got to be careful also because the rook, if the rook leaves C8, it's checkmate on D8.
Yep.
Although that's kind of in the unlikely events of an emergency lane, and that's probably not going to happen. But still, there's just a lot of counterplay. I felt like Christoph could have waited maybe one or two moves and cemented his position.
And where's the queen going, actually? Queen E7 walks into discoveries of all sorts. I don't know if any of them are particularly amazing, but it's scary. Queen E8 or Queen F7 allows a queen trade followed by Rook to D7. Maybe
that's what he should do, though. Park the king on G6. Rook takes B7, and then maybe like Knight D5.
Yeah, maybe, but it feels like white shouldn't be too unhappy to get here, although the E3 pawn is that clear eyesore in white's position.
Yeah, he goes queen G4. I mean, still Alina could take and go rook D7. It's not check, but, all of a sudden white's pieces are relatively well coordinated. Although in that case, there's this nice idea maybe of taking on B5 and then going rook C2, threatening checkmate on the second rank.
Although white will always have rook F2 and,
Correct.
kind of offering an exchange of rooks, especially if that rook gets to the B7 square. Rook D7 now. These are the moments. All right, she went H3 first, but she has 27 seconds. And what I was going to say is that was one of those moments where she spent 11 seconds on that move. You have to make a move in 5 seconds. You're either going to play rook D7 or H3. And to our eyes, it looks like both are good moves for white. Not saying white is better, but they're both fine moves. You just have to pick one because you don't want to be down to 3 seconds left to your opponent's 30 seconds and have them flag you.
Yeah, absolutely. We saw that again, not to harp on David too much, but, the problem with having 3 seconds, you might think, there's increment, I'll gain some seconds. You don't realize how quickly 3 seconds evaporate until you're actually in the thick of things.
And she actually had a moment just there where she went rook takes A7, but if we just pull up the analysis board, bishop takes C3, rook C3, rook F to D1 is
good
actually threatening mate and threatening rook to D7, winning the G pawn. So that's one of those moments
there
where if she had a little more time, she probably would have thought for a bit and then played for something like this.
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe white is the one with the upper hand. Now white is busted here.
Yep.
Rook B1. She does it now, but it's a little bit too late, and black is spoiled for choice. You can even play H6. Christoph very sensibly decides to go for the rook trade. That's also possible. He's got such a majority on the king side. You've got to be a little bit careful, though. Game is not entirely over, but if he puts his rook on A2, ensures that his king is sheltered as he is, white has no way to make progress, and he can start pushing his pawns on the king side. And
now that the rook is protecting the A pawn from the side instead of from in front of it, there are no discovered checks and then pushing the pawn to promotion. Instead, black can even make, I guess actually the king got stuck for the time being. I would say black could have played G5 and then brought the king to G6 and things like that. But gives up the G pawn, just bringing the king in.
Whoa, I don't know about that.
Yeah, that seems a little risky. Check. And then rook back to B5. Okay, but now he's going to go gobble up the H-pawn, so. Yeah, I think that's it. He's going to go E4, then bring the king back in. Yeah, and these positions might look unbalanced. The problem is white has no way to put his rook behind the pawn. This rook on A2 is just ensconced. So, yeah, just take A7. Okay, this is made in 2 now. Rook A1, E3 is the typical way to win this game. There it goes. Don't pre-move E3 because I would actually play rook B1 in that position. Yeah. That is why I'm hated over. But that's a really smart thing. And actually that is something that might be needed in the bullet is making a move, even though it's, an objectively bad move in an objectively lost position. Sometimes your opponent pre-moves something and then you're like, oh, there's a free rook. It's a very common strategy. And I know you've employed it many a time. Yeah. And I've learned it even from one Ali Reza. Ruja, I mean, some of the greatest bullet players are those who can put aside,
sometimes you just have to do what you got to do. You just got to do what you got to do. It's about winning. And you've got to test your opponent on every front. And here we have another kind of Grunfeld type of position. It's slightly sharper than what we saw in game one. The center is more open. I think this is more to Alina's style, but Christoph, I'm sure, is very experienced in these positions as well.
I mean, look how quickly Christoph is playing. He's only spent 4
every
seconds.
Game. That's helping him a lot in these middle games.
It's always interesting, though, when players who play very quickly in the 5-minute, oftentimes they play kind of slowly in 3-minute. It doesn't really make sense to me, but somehow that happens. And maybe it's because in 5-minute, you feel like you have more time down the line. So if something goes a little bit wrong, you have time to figure it out. But I have seen that in various Speeches championship matches where the quicker side in the longer time control is the slower side in the quicker time control. I don't know why it happens.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Wait.
Yeah, well, now he's got to consider d5, but you don't want to go d5 prematurely because then, black can take on b2, go knight e5, and all these dark squares are weakened. So Christoph's got some problems to solve with this d4 pawn. Of course, black is threatening to take on f3 here and then take on d4. Maybe knight c2.
Knight c2 does make sense because your knight a3 isn't really doing too much, and there is knight c2. He probably was just checking if knight c4 or knight a4, if one of those moves are threatening, but it doesn't really look too bad for him. So he goes knight c2. The bishop can always drop back to a1 if needed, plays d5 now. The knight has improved its location to c2 and will likely hop into the center. Oh, wait, bishop b2 is made by d takes c6 now.
Takes d1.
And then rook takes d1. And, well, I don't know if it works out, but you have to be very careful when you allow something like this as black.
Yeah, so Alina decides prudently probably to take on f3, probably go knight e5 after that. But okay, yes, this is pretty good for black. Yeah, I'm still trying to find the right moment to bust out my Christoph. He's got such precise English. It's almost hard to roast. I mean, everything about these players is so precise. It's incredible.
When you're being so complimentary to the players, you know that it's very sincere.
Yeah, coffee is being roasted. But I'll bring it out a little bit later. I still need to warm up.
Are you actually making coffee?
I already have made coffee.
Okay, I don't drink coffee.
Incredibly caffeinated. I need to let the caffeine hit my system before I can start making the roasts. I can already feel it sort of answering, my brain.
Okay, I'm a little concerned, but I'll just try to be optimistic about this. And I think that Alina wants to be optimistic that her knight ventures are going to be okay because white has the 2 bishops and one on b2, one on g2. White would love to f4, then push in e5 and claim all the space in the center. And Alina plays rook to c7, which allows f4. And f4 is one of those double-edged swords. You gain space, but you also make your king a bit more airy, right? Because you open up a diagonal for an eventual dark square potential infiltration. And I would play f4 in this position for sure.
Yeah, you have to do it because you're going to get pushed off the board otherwise. And this is one of those critical f4. Yeah, I'm just trying to calculate that out. Christoph plays rook c1. I mean, even if white trades all of the rooks, these positional superiorities for black are going to come into play, right? That knight on e5. I don't know about this approach. Rook c1 here. I don't know.
We were talking about this with Tanya Sachdev yesterday. It's at certain moments, she played a little too timidly. Like she wasn't making concrete variations happen. And right now is a good example of this where Christoph decides, I don't want to push f4. That's a committal decision. I'm just going to trade rooks and say, I have the 2 bishops. I have better pawn structure in the center of the board. But often these Grunfeld type endgames where you have 2-on-1 over here on the queen side, that's a huge advantage for black because it's farther away from the kings. So the white king often has to run all the way over to defend this pawn, and that can be used as a decoy in many variations. So bishop a3, reasonable. h6, I think, is more or less fine.
Yeah, you mentioned the Grunfeld endgames, and one very important way of studying openings is to basically remove all of the pieces from the board except maybe one pair and understand who's favored in the endgame, because that basically dictates for whom piece trades and masked piece trades are favorable. And oftentimes we get these knight against bishop endgames where black has this outside majority on the queen side, and that basically creates big problems for white. So Christoph has got to be a little bit careful about trading off too many other pieces, but I'm not too knowledgeable in these positions. Maybe you can you can inform that conception a little bit further.
Well, if
Robert.
we want to go back a quick second, just bring up the analysis board, I feel like there was an opportunity to play f4. And the fact that he's not playing f4 is starting to become a problem. If instead of h3, he had started with f4, how does black keep the e7 pawn defended? The knight is under attack. And if it retreats, then I can go take this pawn e7. And maybe he thought that I am really weakening my dark square. So some kind of knight e5 to d7, followed by bishop d4, followed by queen c1. If I can make all this happen, that is pretty dangerous. So I don't fully blame him. I'm not saying he's necessarily missed anything. But even instead of taking on e7, playing e5, we keep talking about just pushing your pawns forward. It felt like an opportune moment to do so.
I agree. And here we see he's tucked his king away on h2. Alina's put her knight on c4. Yeah, I mean, he can d6. Wow.
Whoa, knight d5 shot?
I like that. In fact, wait a minute, Robert. E takes d6, knight d5, queen d8, and then f4.
Well,
knight takes d6, of course, has to be played. But wait a second. What am I missing?
I don't think you're missing anything.
Knight a5, maybe. But I don't buy that for a second.
Yeah.
Knight takes f6 and f takes c5.
Exactly. And so this is, he took on
man.
f6 right away, but f4.
f4 anyway.
Yep.
I don't see how
There it is. There it is, f4.
Well, Alina might have to go knight takes a3, f takes c5, queen takes c5, and try to survive that endgame, but that's going to be hard.
There are definitely chances to survive this.
But now f takes c5, queen f2, queen d3.
Yeah, I was going to say in particular, it's this bishop on g2 and h8 square. So you know that you can leave white with the bishop and an h pawn versus a lone king and to draw. And I always talk about this. It may not be relevant. Oh, what? Queen f2 now? Is that what you're saying?
Queen d3, though.
Yeah, queen d3 takes away the
and then
squares.
Bishop b4. And actually, black's going to lose that knight, believe it or not.
No, it won't. Queen f2, queen d3, de5. Where's your...
Bishop b4?
Oh, bishop b4. Somehow I heard bishop d4, and I was like, I'm not going to move it. Yeah, that hurts. My feelings are hurt. The position hurts. It looks like Christoph. Who needs chess explained when you can just watch him? There's very little explaining to do here. It's pretty clear that the game is over. Bishop c1 wins the second. And this move d6 is stuck in my mind. We think of him as a solid player, but he's doing a great job waiting for his chances. And he's not afraid to enter a tactical skirmish when the position calls for it. So, So far, he's doing everything right. And he's repeating this sort of tango nimzo cross. Which I think objectively, like if you're playing a classical game against Alina, I think she would be able to actually build up an advantage, but it's very hard in a blitz game to punish your opponents even for questionable openings. So I think it's a good idea, but I also believe that if Alina gets a first victory, then we'll see some more confident play from her. Because I think right now she's just trying to figure out how can I actually score a full point rather than getting what seems to be promising positions. And then I make up one mistake here and Christoph pounces and seizes the full point.
Yeah, definitely. And here we see something that's almost transposed into a King's Indian. And I've seen this way of playing before, where basically black delays e5. Okay, Christoph is preparing e5, d5, knight d4. But that can be dealt with, I think, in a variety of ways. But Alina's got to be careful here because that position, even allowing the knight to d4 is not the end of the world. But this is the kind of bunker style chess. I think Christoph's very good at this, and he waits for his opportunity and he pounces very well. And
if Christoph were with the white pieces here, I believe, he went e6. Do you think that was, bishop e3. So I had a highlight on the e6. So I was like, wait, e6. But I was going to say, do you think after e5, in some other variations, you could just ignore it and then play like h3 so that you take on d4, I just take back with my knight on d4 and play with my c4 and e4 pawns and claim a spatial advantage? It feels like a very Christoph style.
Definitely. And those King's Indian types of positions, they're very cramped for black. So he just has to choose the right moment. I think he will have to play e5 eventually. But maybe he can keep delaying with something like rook b8, preparing b5. It's a little bit dubious, but as you said, Robert, it's hard to concretely punish these types of strategies in a blitz, even in a 5-minute game.
What I like about Alina's play thus far, most of all, is her clock situation. She's actually ahead by essentially half a minute. and she's a very solid center. Nothing to really worry about thus far. Her pieces are superior. The bishop on c8 can't get out yet. Of course, we keep talking this e5 move, which will free up that bishop, but she's been moving very quickly. So now at this moment, she thought for a bit when queen d3. That is very good time management, because before queen d3, you're like, well, I don't know exactly what I want to accomplish here. Then you make a move like queen d3, preemptively protecting various pawns, c4 and e4, and now the knight has to go backwards. You had talked about knight d4 ideas for black. Now the knight is pushed back. Think about c5 for white, play b4, rook c1, or both in some move order, and press on forward.
Yeah, she just has to not overthink it, and she doesn't. b4, clearly the opening has been a success for white. The thing with these King's Indian positions is black is never entirely out of chances. Black's position is very solid, so got to be careful about prematurely and sacking something playing like c6, but white is not in a hurry. She can maybe double in the c file, just improve her position, improve knight d2, knight c4 is another very common maneuver in these positions. You know what this reminds me of, very nasty here. It reminds me of the Steinitz deferred I used to play from the black side. Where you even played it against me, I think, once. Yeah, and you get these positions where, okay, you're solid as black, but you're very, very passive. And these sort of fianchetto positions are a great way of dealing with it, because your bishop on g2 is covering everything. There's no weaknesses anywhere on the board. The knight just reroutes itself into c4. And white controls really just the entire board right now. f4 at some moment is going to be played. That's a knife. Yeah, f4. How does, first of all, d6 is just hanging. So black can play rook a1 to knight c8, but this position is hanging by the absolute narrowest of threads. Oh man. Queen b8, f4 now is even possible, but not even obligatory. There's so many moves here. f4 just claiming more space, and b5 can't take on c5, she claims, because then your e5 pawn goes down, and that's a very important pawn to the position, because then when I move my knight, I'll play e5 myself, continue advancing. That looks not fun at all for black. And c6 or b6 or c6 for white are both. Oh my! Look at that position after b6, c6 with a buried queen. Oh my god! Literally entombed. That's a good queen. That's a very good queen. And then white would just play, rook up, queen back, queen to the a file, trap the queen. That's actually hilarious. Yeah, he literally cannot move any of his pieces. But Christoph is the last. H file seems to be the only file that black can move any pieces on. And it's not maybe even H3. It's not Alpha Zero style. This is out of desperation, not out of aggression. Right. Rook H8, Queen G8. But here comes the push here. She'll play Rook B1, Knight to B5, put pressure on C7. There are also potential knight sacks on D6, just to spring free or pass pawn. This is not what you wanted from the black side. In fact, how are you going to protect C7? I don't think you can. You are. Queen A8, Knight B5, Queen A7, Knight B5. And the C7 pawn is the base of the chain. All the dominoes fall. I keep mentioning dominoes, and then the only thing I can think about for the rest of the match is pizza. I don't know why I did that. Why do you do this to me? Why did I do that? Why am I like this, Robert? I don't know. I'll forgive you eventually. And this match has been fun thus far. I'm actually really enjoying the stylistic very high quality of play. Yeah. I honestly feel like I'm looking at some classical games here, and there's a huge compliment to the players. Knight B5 now should just, that's it. This was let's not say it's over till it's over. We all know what can happen, but the quality of play, particularly in this game by Alina, very, very high. And now just knight takes D6. I don't see a problem with that. Queen on D3 is defending B1. Christoph wants knight G4, but it's rook F1. Right. So I think I made the whole chat hungry now too. It's an attack for one move, and then you simply slide that rook to the defense of the pawn, and then your attack's over. Exactly. But Christoph has had some good games himself. He's up right now 2.5 to half. And now this is Alina's time to shine. It's exactly what I was saying, Danya. I think I sort of predicted this. I don't want to say I'm a prophet or anything, but I was like, hey, if Alina gets that one win, that one good game under her belt, I think that going forward we'll see more games like this, because she has such a good style, like a very restrictive style that makes it hard for her opponents to seize the initiative. But she has been lacking confidence in some of the games as far, just not playing as quickly as she should, and that causes her some problems. Yeah, and like you said, if she just couple more precise moves, she's going to win. And this first win, I agree with you. One of the few times I'm agreeing with you, Robert. So savor this moment, please.
Okay.
Wow, knight check on E8. Look at this, and then D6.
Yep.
Just ramming it through. But confidence is incredibly important. It's not only about the score; it's about the trend. Sometimes you can be down 2 points, but you win 2 games in a row, and you're the most confident person in the world. You don't feel like you're losing, and that has to be taken into account because this is a long match. There's time to come back. So you can't just look at the score. Christoph's up by 1. He's doing well. It's about who's the most confident in the current situation as well.
Right. Yeah, this is a piece up, and both C6 and G4 are under attack. That's a 4.
Just devastating. That's the thing with the King's Indian, and when it doesn't go well, it really doesn't go well. Well, not that this was a King's Indian, but kind of the structure.
Yeah, it became a sort of King's Indian type of thing. But I like how Alina handled it. And as I said, just the fact that she was moving so quickly early on was the best indication. And
she's got 2 minutes now. She's got time to make sure.
Just avoid one blunder, Danya, is Queen G4, H takes G3. Do not play H takes G3.
Oh, man, yeah.
Because then knight E2 check, the rook cuts off the H file. You have to sack your queen on E2. And then it's 3 minor pieces for a queen. Still good for white, probably. But yeah, she just took back with the F pawn. And now the rook joins the attack for white.
Yeah, it looks like she cashed Lynn on her advantages.
Please don't. Rook takes F7 check has to be a mate. It is a mate. Rook F7, Queen E6 check. Yeah, I'll show on the board. King takes F7, Queen E6. King has to go to F8, Queen F6 check. King G8, Queen G7 check and mate.
That's the most beautiful checkmate I've ever seen, Robert.
I don't appreciate your sarcasm, but I still appreciate you.
Thank you. That means a lot to me. I think I'm tearing up. I won't be able to commentate any further. She does it. And that's the mark of confident player. Of course, you could have won in a different way, but when you believe in your calculation, you're not afraid to take a quote unquote risk to finish the game out faster.
Right. And that's actually a very good point, because what happens sometimes is if you're not feeling confident, we saw this with David Pruis in that game against John Bartholomew, is he was completely winning, but he made a couple decisions that allowed John to stay in the game long enough, and then David ended up flagging from a completely winning position. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't to criticize his play, but you make certain moves when you're not feeling confident that are just riskless, and then the longer your opponent's in the game, well, the longer they have to survive, and that could become a problem for you. And right now, Alina, we see a different opening this time, right? We have C6, E6, we have the triangle pawn structure here with 2 different pawn chains and ending on D5. Bishop H5.
Yeah.
This is time there.
Yeah, these are interesting positions. I mean, the bishop's outside the pawn chain, which is good for black, but I've also seen white when I've actually had this a couple of times, this type of structure with both colors, and it's not entirely innocuous, because white can try to get E4, and white can play Queen B3 in this position, and then meet Queen B6 with C5. So it's it's equal, but both sides have their chance here. And Christoph G4, interesting. So maybe he wants knight E5, yeah.
Right. And this looks riskier than it is, because when you push pawns in front of your king, as you see white has done here, sometimes you're told by your coaches, don't do that. It makes your king weak. But there's no attack coming. White has the bishop on G2. Only one black piece, knight on F6 is over here. And so black hasn't gained so much. In fact, black has given up the bishop pair, which is not that big of a deal because of this pawn chain from F7 to D5 to over to B7. That bishop on G2, your extra bishop in the position, doesn't have a great diagonal to work with, which is why eventually, Danya, I think your E4 move will have to be played.
Right, as Chris would say, well, real chess players, of course, they push the pawns in front of the king, and yes, I'm not afraid to do it, so kudos to Christoph for managing it.
Oh, but yeah,
I like white's position here. He's got the 2 bishops, and black's constantly having to make decisions. It's interesting because there's so much latent tension in the center. Black's got to decide, okay, do I play D takes C4 and E5? How do I stay put? Alina's staying put for now. I like the move rook F8. She's putting the rook in a closed file, but she's preemptively sort of preparing for a potential opening of the center.
And she has a choice too, right? She can choose to play for C or E5 depending on the situation. And white, by playing E3 rather than E4, allows an eventual G5 and F4. If you really want to clamp down, sometimes you just push all your pawns over there.
Yes, Robert. Yes. Exactly.
Yes. Good move. Ooh, D takes C4, B2. Is she gonna take that?
I don't know. I'm thinking about queen takes B2, rook 8, B1.
Wait, your bishop on D2.
I know, but I was thinking rook FD1, queen C2. I think that's a draw.
Oh, you're just gonna chase my queen around? But maybe black has some kind of knight B6 at some moment. You have to be very careful because you're trying to just chase my queen like this and make a draw, but at some moment I can play a knight B6 move or something to attack the queen. But let's see. Take on B2. It's played. This is what happens when you're playing too solidly, and strategically D takes C4 doesn't often make sense because it opens up the bishop on G2 and you have to think about that. But if there's tactically a problem with it, in this case the pawn on B2, this is not what Christoph wanted. You don't want to just give away a pawn and then just go rook D1.
Yeah, I mean, we see the confidence here, and Alina saving a lot of time. I could see someone sort of agonizing over this for 2 minutes. She's playing quickly. Queen A3 here, for example, is a good move, but not even necessarily, obligatory. It's just A4 is a little bit of an actually very unpleasant idea because right. A4 threatens not only the positional A5, A6, but that queen's going to be in trouble. So I really think Alina should maybe knight BD5, but queen A3 just seems like the safest option here.
Yeah, maybe I was saying knight FD5, just keep the B file closed, because knight BD5, there might just be a simple capture on D5, and after you capture back some kind of rook B1, rook takes B7. That concerned me. But even there, it's not that big a deal. If you play C takes D5, rook B1 of some sort, and take on B7, yeah, maybe white's a little bit better, but black is very solid in those positions nonetheless. So queen A3, right. She takes the prudent approach. I approve of it, Danya. I think it's definitely the best move. And it annoys you when you look at this from the white side. You're like, I should have some counterplay. When rook B1 is played, are you going to trap my queen by playing rook B3? My queen can always just run back to D6, or if my bishop moves the other way, move back to E7. And so it feels like there should be something here, but proving it is a whole other story. Yeah,
and I think that white should try to organize some counterplay with A4, A5, so push the queen away and go A4, A5. I feel like the B file is his primary source of seeking compensation, but at the same time, I agree. And this is not the type of position that Christoph likes, where white's, got to fish for compensation and black can open up the center at some point. And eventually, white might pay for playing G4, although that might happen, 10 moves down the line.
Right. And I kind of like the way you framed it, of fishing for compensation, because that's often what it feels like. It's like you're just moving around, just trying to find something, and you're trying to, hook something in, and you just don't make it work. And she's thinking after rook B3, which is a bit surprising to me because she spent quite a bit of time playing rook A to C8, and you sort of knew rook B3 is coming, but she has two moves, queen to D6 or queen to A5. You can voluntarily walk into a discovery, but that won't work. Sorry, I completely didn't think about queen A6 because doubling your own pawn seemed like such an ugly concept, but actually, maybe that was a good move.
It is, because now C5 is a huge idea. Bishop F1 maybe, but the thing is, okay, yeah, G5 and Christoph keeps pushing his pawns, but now maybe even knight D7 is interesting. I feel like as soon as black plays C5, white's position might start creaking a little bit, but I'm not sure I don't know what to make of this.
Yeah, the downside of playing C5 is you open up the B7 square for this bishop.
Right.
So then you go regain the pawn A6 that way. But now that you play G5, you have to protect that pawn. So H4, he spent an important tempo, and now C5 happens. So go ahead, play bishop B7, take my pawn on A6. I'll simply just play rook C7, take on D4, and I'm happy to give you a nice
knight B8 too becomes possible there. Maybe even knight B8 here.
Oh, I like it.
Or after takes, yeah.
Well, maybe knight B5 instead of taking back on D4 there.
Right. Yeah, these intermezzos, it's so easy to miss an intermediate move. But I think that's one of the most sort of commonly missed sources of tactics. The thing is, maybe bishop B2 should be played so that after rook takes D4, you can play knight B5, and there's no check on G4.
I like that. You steal the G4 check, so that way after rook D4, there's knight to B5. Love it.
With that being said, knight C6 after bishop B2. Black is definitely in the driver's seat here.
Oh, for sure. You're playing against an isolated pawn. The IQP is not the one you would like to have. Sometimes in a queen position with queens on the board, more early stages, the IQP can be really nice as a lever for your pieces. What?
Ooh. Not sure.
Knight B5. She's going to play rook D7 or something and give
I
up
think
the
she
exchange?
missed it. I think Christoph's trying to figure out whether he missed something.
Oh, they both missed it.
Wow. Unless we're missing something, but
What was wrong with Knight B5? That's a fork.
unbelievable.
Okay, well, Bishop E3
that's why I thought he played Bishop E2.
Yeah, you set it up perfectly.
I don't understand. I mean, I'm trying to figure. I mean, of course, black isn't completely lost, but maybe. I mean, yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah,
that's honestly crazy.
I think the exchange sack still gave black some chances, but of course, white was in the driver's seat. Now all of a sudden, she just takes a pawn. She doesn't even play rook takes rook and trade some stuff. She says, "I'm gonna take H4," and then G5 feels weaker. A7 is a problem for black, but she's going to give up the 8 pawn and claim that she's going to still be up a pawn, and white has to deal with the G5 situation. The 8 pawn for white isn't running too quickly.
Yeah, I mean, knight A7 played, and as you said, yeah, this is still quite unclear. I think Alina's getting low on time. We might see sort of our first true time scramble here. So it takes on D1. This is a little bit flimsy. For example, rook B7.
I like rook B7 because you keep the knights stuck to each other. They need to stay on their spots to protect one another. Maybe rook B7 can be met by some kind of bishop D6 to protect the B8 knight, or rook B4 just to try to trade those rooks off. But this is the problem: is you're up a pawn as black, but the 8 pawn is the best pawn. So it's about pawn quality, not pawn quantity.
Yeah, I like it. Pawn quantity, not pawn quality. Let me write that one down, Robert.
Hey man, I always say it's about the quality of the pieces. Knight B5 here.
Now, this is great. I'm going to use this in all of my articles everywhere.
Knight B5, then play A4, play A5. You get the point. That pawn's running up the board, and they're both under a minute left. So down to about 45 seconds. So look at that. She went bishop D6 and then rook B4. That was a waste of a tempo because you allowed the pawn to get to A4 for free. Whereas if she played rook to B4 immediately, that pawn was still on A2. And that tempo may not actually be the end of the world for her in this particular position. But as we both know, sometimes it's the end of the world. You give that one tempo, it's vital, you lose the game on the spot.
Yes, and I think Christoph needs to bring his king to B5. If he manages to do that pawn, as you said, will be guaranteed passage for. The thing is, king D3 is met by knight E5 check, so it's not that easy. But now knight B5, then bishop D4. I actually don't think white is worse here, practically speaking. Or maybe he is. It's hard to. I mean, if Alina can play like knight C5, for example, and force a trade of pieces, but I like bishop E4 preparing bishop C2. We'll see how this plays out.
I think knight C5 followed by knight C6. Here we go. One knight,
nice.
2 knight.
But then white maybe plays F4 and asks black how she plans to make progress.
I mean, we're predicting the moves here.
We are.
I think we're both right, but Alina's also up 15 seconds. We're getting into bullet time scramble, and she plays knight A5. She's trying to play for a win here. She's saying, I'm up a pawn. This knight can come to C4, and the pawn A4 is not going anywhere. Trade those pieces.
Okay, so he wants to put his king on C3.
Right, and then try to...
Which is understandable. The problem is... Maybe there is no problem. Yeah, this is the problem.
So the issue for white is even if you go after the A5 knight, if I can trade one of the knights and sack my knight for the A pawn, the black king will just start taking the kingside pawns.
Good point. This is where I start getting stressed out. He's got. Oh my god! I can't watch. Sorry, I can't watch the clock.
1.9 seconds.
Oh. I can't watch the clock on this. Okay, knight H4.
Good move. Take
knight G6. Oh, now knight E5. Well, bishop F5 there. It has to be a draw.
Yeah, just take on F5. Just do it. You have no time left. Take the pawn. There he goes. Okay, he won the G pawn. He'll win the F pawn next. Play on if you're Alina, though. Like, make him sacrifice the piece and play up a piece.
This is where you start uttering prayers to your internet service provider.
Yep. You just give a check at some point.
Knight B4 was a draw, though.
Oh, yeah, the 2 knight.
Oh, my, look at his clock.
Oh, no. Oh, no. Oh, does the server make an automatic draw when it's two knights versus a king?
No, I don't think it does, but he's not happy. No, but I don't know why he was sitting there. I mean, he just has to pre-move like 30 moves.
He's not used to it. You know, he's just really not used to.
I think he tried to offer a draw and he maybe assumed it would auto draw.
Oh, but you know, you can't get an auto draw, right? That's exactly what happened in Fallujah versus Carlsen at the World Rapid Blitz.
The thing is, in those positions, it's not like a defined theoretical draw. I think, is two knights an auto draw?
I don't know if it is, but bishop versus knight, for example, is an auto draw. Like if you
server, so it seems the two knights is a draw.
Oh my gosh, that takes practice to know. I didn't even know that knight play all the time. But Donnie, now that we know that, if I'm ever in a time scramble, I'm just giving you my knight so that I can claim a draw without even having to claim it.
Right. I mean, that's crazy. And that's the thing about bringing yourself so low on time. You just have a single glitch in your brain and that's it. You know, you lose on time. So you just need that slight buffer.
Wow. That's awesome.
That's crazy. I've only once had this situation where I've been trying to force two knights. I had that recently in an over the board game.
You've had that?
Against Hiram Melkumian at the US Masters. There was a fascinating position where I had a queen against two knights and two pawns. And I found a combination where I was worse. Like he was pushing his pawns. I found a way to give my queen up for the two pawns. It was a draw.
That's awesome.
I also have a funny story about something similar. So two bishops against one bishop is a dead draw. And at the World Team Championship in 2015, I was sitting next to Alexander Onishuk, my teammate, who was playing Armenian GM Akopian. And Onishuk had two bishops against Akopian's one. So they reach that position. Onishuk looks up and asks Akopian, wait, is this just a draw? And Akopian just smiles and says yes, and they shake hands.
That's awesome.
Yeah, just a gentleman, and he was right.
He's like, wait a second. It probably thought it was going to be a draw, but this looks so, dead draw that we shouldn't even play on. And those are two fantastic players who both have reached 2,700. They have honestly great ambassadors for the game, great students of the game, and fantastic players. So that's a pretty funny story from two illustrious careers. Both players are not really playing much anymore, but so fantastic. And this position, we've been telling stories. What is going on here? There's
what is
on
going
H6,
on here?
A bishop on B7. This is getting aggressive for Christoph.
Yeah, I mean, White's got to be careful tossing all these pawns around. Okay, so Christoph's going to definitely take on E6. And
because queen F7 check and queen takes G7 is not one you want to see happen with the bishop on B2.
I like White's position, though. I feel like probably dynamically, objectively, first of all, rook B1, bishop B4, small trap.
Yep.
So be careful about these skewers, but
not even just rook B1, bishop B4 traps the queen almost.
Oh man, and then rook G6. Yeah, White's got to be careful all of a sudden. It looks like she's holding all the initiative cards, but that bishop on B7 in these positions combined with a rook on G6, forced to be reckoned with.
I actually don't know what to do as White.
Yeah, what to do with the sign?
Because the E4 square with his bishop E4 threat is really frustrating, and knight D2 just worries me because queen H4 and things like that coming for a checkmate. Queen H4 is just like all my pieces are in the attack.
That's crazy. I mean, and that's what makes these positions fascinating. You think, I have the initiative, everything's going well. All of a sudden, when that queen is in the thick of things, that can actually be a detriment rather than a positive.
Agreed. How do we do anything here?
I'm just struggling to find maybe knight D2.
Well, I was saying knight D2, queen H4.
Oh, queen H4, so that's what you were saying, yeah. Queen C2, but now that exposes the king, so maybe bishop E4 and rook G6.
Yep, that's for starters an idea. Even bishop E4, queen E8, queen H5 type maneuvers come to mind. It's a bit slow though. I don't want to play that kind of approach. Is there also no? It's too much. I would say bishop F3, queen H4, like H3, knight G5, going all in for some kind of mating attack. But I don't think that should work. It's way too much.
But now there's ideas of rook takes G2. I don't think it works yet. I feel like their attack, queen F8 is an interesting move here as well.
to go after this knight on F3.
Although there's this knight H4. Still, white is hanging by the narrowest of threads here.
Knight H4 is a nice move. Queen F8, knight H4, and actually it seems to turn around because white has F4 coming.
Yep. Maybe simply Queen E7, Rook F8. Maybe it's worth playing this a little bit slowly and bringing all the, all the dolls to the nursery party.
I think it's hard to play a position like this slowly. Like, I think you're right that perhaps Queen E7 is the correct move, but it is really tempting to play something with an actual threat in the moment. But like a knight G5 move, for instance. Actually, knight G5 might be a very good move. But that's the type of move that I would first think of because I want to checkmate my opponent when all my pieces are lined up against the king.
And
here it comes.
Exactly what happens.
Yep.
King H1 maybe.
King H1.
To channel Danny King. I don't know, it's so close. He might pull it out here. Black might pull it out. All right. Oh, there's a nice line. Knight H4, Knight H3, and Queen takes H4.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Bam.
Give me the hot sauce.
And then Bishop G2 checkmate. That's beautiful.
Oh, it happens. Let's see if Krzysztof finds it.
Oh, no, it did happen. Wow.
Oh, my knight H3 and Queen takes H4. Beautiful.
He's finding it. He for sure is finding it.
Oh, he is.
Uh-oh, here it comes. Queen takes H4. If he doesn't see this.
Savage. What a savage.
He found it. He missed knight B5 in the previous game. He finds this beautiful tactic with knight H3, Queen H4. And Alina can only just shake her head and be like, well, that was honestly pretty beautiful. I think you should allow the checkmate.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there's really just no, maybe F3, but knight F2 check wins more pieces. He really zealed the deal here. Sielecki the deal.
No, don't.
Sealed the deal. I can't even can't even make it happen.
Oh my gosh. You didn't have to do that.
I'm really just getting rid of the bad puns so that people can really answer the daily question.
I wonder what answers we have received. Have people been getting involved? We'll ask our producer to.
Oh, they better have. I mean, crazy. Yeah, this is just incredible.
Donnie, that was bad, by the way. That one was really.
Oh, I didn't realize. I thought that was one of my best ones. So.
F3 was played, so you are the IM Whisperer.
Yeah, but I mean, knight F2. Yeah, no need to seek adventure. Sometimes, I notice this when you come up with a beautiful idea, you're tempted to follow up in sacrificial fashion. But my coach would always remind me, I'm not writing a tactics book during the game. I'm just trying to win the game. So you've got to hold yourself back. And that's exactly what Krzysztof has been taking all the pieces, Bishop F3, end the game, start the next game.
This is a pretty sweet game. I feel like I now want to venture into these sort of openings because it was super sharp from the very beginning, which is something that we were saying that Krzysztof wouldn't do. But hey, he's letting his moves do the talking.
Yeah, he is. Or should we say do the explaining?
You didn't have to do that. Like, again, you continue to overindulge the audience with
not my day
puns that just don't need to be said. It breaks my heart.
Well,
am I going to start calling you Danny?
That is my name, technically.
Well, yeah, you are Daniel, but I go with Danya, but I might have to go with Danny because you are.
You might have to demote me
because you're being a tool. So you're going to have to be called Danny soon.
Oh,
anyway,
not Danny. Anything but Danny.
Danny boy over here. We have a lead for Krzysztof once more. He's up 3.5, 2.5. He started with a 2-game lead when he was up 2.5. Alina scored 2 straight victories. Now Krzysztof strikes back. And this is actually what you were looking at earlier, these Queen B3, C5 ideas. Because if white is captured on B3, A takes B3, this rook is happy on the semi-open file when white just like B4 and B5 and press forward. Yeah,
and so Alina drops your queen to C. And now it's important to note in these positions, the price of a tempo isn't as high. So you might look at this and say, well, black's, moving her queen, all these moves, but the center is closed. So development is not quite as crucial. Krzysztof likes going for that bishop. He likes the 2-bishop advantage. I feel like he's just very knowledgeable in these types of positions.
Yeah, and Gata Komsky, this is when I see the black side of this position, I think of Komsky because he gets all sorts of Slavs like this, and then all of a sudden you're like, wait, black's position is bad. Then you look 5 moves later, hey, it's not so bad. Then you look 5 moves after that, and you're like, wait, black's just better here. What's happening? So having the two bishops and the superior pawn structure feels like it should be an advantage, but black is incredibly solid. Though I'm not positive about allowing the capture on f5 rather than dropping the bishop to g6 and being captured there.
Yeah, and I mean, bishop h3 ideas become somewhat prevalent, followed by f3 and e4, which is what he did. I mean, g6, maybe you just play this very concretely, go f3, and you say, I'm going to go e4 and blast you in the center.
For sure. The open positions favors the bishops, typically, and right now feels like no exception. So he castles, knight c7, bring the knight to e6.
f3. I think f3, knight e6, bishop e5. The faster you play e4, black is still a little discombobulated. His rooks are disconnected. She's uncastled. I feel like f3 is a big chance here.
Yeah, you need to play for it. Yeah, rook d1's not the move. Bishop c1, stopping black from castling, but not knight g5. I would play knight g5 because that actually protects the h6 pawn. But then white plays bishop g2 back and tries.
Yeah, but at that point, black can castle. What do you agree with me? I feel like f3 was a big chance there.
h5, wow. I do think f3 was a good move. I'm not positive on h5, but if h4 comes in next, then you just create an attack on the king side and castle queen side with queen d7 and castle long. It could be black who was the one who's
all of a sudden, black is just checkmating white along the h file. Well, that's what makes these positions so interesting. You never know what happens when the center opens. It's just, you think the game is going to go one way. All of a sudden, now Christoph plays f3. And interesting though. I don't. This actually, I think, is better than it looks. Okay, maybe it looks good.
It looks weird, but there's a problem on f5. I would think about queen d7 here. And after queen d7, gf5, just knight g7, but then e4 comes. That's the real problem. I was just trying to open up the position.
Yes.
But maybe I should give you the pawn. Queen d7, gf, castle long, but I'm not actually getting a big enough attack.
My king can come to h1, relatively safe there.
Yep.
I see what you're trying to do. Maybe you have gfg and then, but then what? Because then the f file is open. That knight on f6 lost its support after black played g6. So all of a sudden, black is knight h7. I like though. She wants to put her knight on g5, sort of cement things there. Maybe e4 now. I don't know.
There, at some moment, black has to consider knight takes d4. I don't think it quite gets you enough. But the point of knight takes d4 is that the rook takes d4 to play bishop takes c5 with a pin on the rook to the king. And you get two pieces for a rook and two pawns, but that's generally speaking better for the pieces, especially when the king is open, as his king on e8 is.
I'd consider g5 for white here. But as you pointed out, Robert, maybe their knight takes d4 becomes already possible because that bishop on h3 is undefended. LPD go loose, pieces drop off. I think that's But then bishop takes c8, knight c2, bishop takes b7. That's right, and just snap all the pawns off along the diagonal. No, so I was thinking g5 and then knight g5, bishop g5, and then quickly getting e4 in. Not to harp on this idea constantly, but he plays e4 immediately. But now it's different because now, things are still a little bit closed on the king side. Whoa.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Wasn't expecting that.
It's creative. I mean, that king on h3
is actually surprisingly safe.
Yeah, like Atlas holding the world up, but hard to get to.
I mean, very strange. And I'm almost wondering if the wrong knight was placed on g5. It looks much more natural to bring your h knight there. But I was wondering if you move the e knight to try to get to g4. It doesn't seem to make too big of a difference just yet. So strange.
Yeah, it's hard to... If that bishop on c1 was anywhere else, knight takes h3 followed by knight g5 check would be devastating, or as the Russians say, devastating. But what is going on here? Maybe just queen d7, the voice of reason prevail, then just castle long and say, I'm going to retain the flexibility to take on h3 when I want to.
Yeah, the bishop on h3 is useless. Oh, was captured.
Never mind. What do I know?
You know a lot, and I actually liked what you were saying. But I'm wondering why capturing on h3 was necessary, because that bishop could not move.
Yes, and bishop takes g5 was nothing to fear.
Castle kingside.
I mean, there's so many twists and turns. It's like
It's like a thriller. You know, you think black's going to castle long, you castle white's. You think white's going to put his king on h1, and it lands on h3. Now white plays d5. Finally.
But can I go queen takes c5, maybe? Can I get away with this?
But then bishop, I don't know, but b4
b4 is
resigns. Queen d6, knight f6, just b4 wins on the spot. Also bishop b3, same thing. But then knight g5 maybe.
That's what I was looking at, exactly. Bishop e3, knight g5, and then you have to take my knight, and then I take your bishop, and my bishop's safer on g5, and the queen e5 actually is just...
But Christoph's I think one thing experience helps you with is not necessarily spotting tactics fast, but identifying moments when there could be a decisive tactic. So just the fact that he's pausing, maybe he's not seeing it yet, but he's giving himself a chance to see it, and there we see it before. Just crushing it. Black not only loses his bishop, she also loses.
Queen takes c1. Queen takes c1.
Oh my goodness.
Because I have knight g5 check.
But queen takes c6.
Queen e6, you said?
Queen c3 check. Queen e6, queen c3 check.
Oh my god, this is amazing stuff. You take on c3, I take your queen, and then we get into an endgame.
King h7, very important. And now queen e6, there's queen c3 check. Yep. Amazing catch, Robert.
Oh my gosh. There's also queen a3 check in many of these lines.
There's queen takes g6 in this position too. I still think white's better, but rook f7 wins.
Oh, rook f7 is nasty.
Rook f7, queen g6, king h8. It's not over yet. There's knight f4 check. But
oh my gosh.
There's so many tactics here.
And the queen protects h6.
Yeah, but that knight on e7 protects the queen on g6.
That's true. So you can take...
Wait, no, but you can't really. You're up with an exchange.
Well, even this is unclear, right? Like you get the knight and two pawns over there on the king side. Oh my gosh, this is just wild.
No, it is winning, right? Because white's queen after rook f7, queen g6, king h8, queen h5 check.
Yeah.
And then queen e5 check.
You're the devil. Well, after queen h5, go king g8. Oh, can't go king g8. You're knight. I go king g7.
Queen e5 check anyway.
You're the worst. I don't like. Oh, but there's knight f4 check at the end of that. And your knight's on e7.
Right, that knight is guarding the g6 square.
That's amazing. That is so amazing. So queen h5 check
is winning. That's the only move, I think. Otherwise, there's forks galore at queen f7, knight g5. Let's see if he finds queen h5. I'm sure he'll find. I mean, once you reach this position, it becomes clear you have to get your queen out of there.
Yeah, I'm just showing. My idea was knight f4 check, king h4, knight g6 check, but the knight on e7 covers that square. That is honestly just, this tactical sequence has been amazing. Queen h5 played.
Absolutely amazing.
King g7.
Queen e5 now.
Yep.
And he'll see it.
And it's a shame essentially that after knight f4 check, your rook on 8 can't get to h8. Because after knight f4 check, king takes h4, rook h8, then there's like a big attack happening.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I guess you have to go for this, but rook takes c1 is, whoop, okay. Okay, that's better.
That's even better, actually.
Checkmate. Checkmate.
Oh, it literally is checkmate, queen h8. Wow.
Queen h8 is made.
Savage.
That game was unbelievable.
That is incredible. Incredible tactics. And it started with queen takes c1.
Wow. That was the
unbelievable
second to last game there. I'm going to bring up that analysis board one more time just to give a little bit of instant replay of how this happened. It was looking good for Christoph Sielecki with the white pieces. And then at this moment, d5, pawn takes d5, knight takes d5. Here, grab my pawn on c5. b4 happens. Queen takes c1. Let me go knight g5 check with your king and your queen being forked. Knight e7. Rook takes f7 check, sacrificing a rook, taking on g6, and very importantly, do not allow knight f4 with that check, winning the queen back, but instead brought the queen to safety and didn't just take the queen and win, instead forced the checkmate. That was a beautiful game.
Unbelievable. Yeah. Wow.
So what do we have here? We have a closed position where white has these double c pawns, and white would love to play f2 to f4 in one move.
Yeah, oftentimes I've actually had these types of positions against Conrad Holtz. And black, I never liked this for black because after d5, well, I guess if black gets f5 very quick, the problem is if you do allow f4, black can get in huge trouble in these positions. That's exactly what Alina's trying to do.
Isn't knight
ram F4
g6
through.
some kind of like Fischer idea? Maybe not in this position, but there are ideas with knight to g6. Here it is.
Is your name Christoph?
No.
Okay, just wanted to make sure.
But I just have seen these ideas before, like where you give yourself the double pawns, but open up the F file. And if there's ever F4 by white, it frees up the E5 square for your knight. So I'm not sure it really pans out here. F4 still feels strong.
It does feel very strong. Yeah, and Alina's is very well versed in the ideas here. Yeah, Black's got to be very, very careful. I mean, he takes F4, bishop F4, maybe queen E7. And you try to obviously get a knight on E5, but I don't believe it.
Maybe I start with queen E7.
Yes.
Because if you take on E5, I take with the queen, and maybe I'll go and take your C3 pawn if you allow me to.
And maybe, yeah, I was thinking about F5, but then you go E4. Nice.
So queen E7. I guess my name is really
Nostradamus. Robert Nostradamus.
I see somebody saying, I wish I could bet on this. And I'm pretty sure that you can. I'm not advocating for it. I'm not promoting that, but I just stating factually that I think it's possible. So just throwing that out there. Anyway, rook b2 played, swinging the rook over to the F file, to the king side. And these pawns on C4 and C3, these are long-term weaknesses that will not be easy to take advantage of.
Yeah, I mean, very smooth play by... The game wasn't smooth enough, but Alina's play, I think, is very smooth there. Rook swinging to F2. And the thing is, the square on E5, I don't know if you agree with me, Rob, but sometimes when you only have one strength in your position, it can look deceptively solid, but you tend to ignore all of the other faults in your position. Just doesn't compensate for them.
Right. E5 here. I mean, it just feels like the move.
I was cooking up another pun, but I think I'll spare everybody. I think this one's actually good, though.
The pun or the move?
Pun.
What's the pun?
The pun was, well, I was going to say, Alina seems well-versed in these positions. We all know that she's the wife of Polish super grandmaster Radoslav or Radek Wojciech. So I was just going to say, she might need to take radical measures to even up the score here.
Danya?
I think I need to disconnect from the call.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, commentating team, but these might be the last words that I say on air. Spare me.
And you missed an opportunity that people are saying in the chat you said Nostradamus to Nostradamus.
Nostradamus?
Like Nostradamus? Like when you call me Nostradamus?
Nostradamus, yes. Okay, that's above my intellectual pay grade, unfortunately.
Well, I don't know what that pay grade looks like, but I'm guessing it's Anyway, back to the chess before I say something I regret. This pawn sacrifice here by white, she probably did it feeling out of necessity, and opening up the king side does make sense when black is underdeveloped on that side of the board, and the rook at a8, bishop on c8 not really helping out. But it is a pawn, and h2 check just to keep things closed as possible, or just leave the pawn h3 because white doesn't really want to take it and allow the bishop to land there. But bishop takes f6 is a serious threat.
Yeah, but now after g5 is played, of course, the knight loses its supports, just bishop g3. Now e5 becomes something to be reckoned with, although, black can play bishop d7 and toss the ball in white's court, because if knight g4 is played, there's liquidation on the f file. White's initiative could fizzle out.
Right. That bishop d7 looks very natural here. So how would white respond to that? It feels like you're one move short from crushing. Ooh, took there.
Greedy guy. But I guess he can get away with it, bishop d7 now.
And the point is rook h1 is by knight g4 always, so knight g4 is a huge threat.
That's the issue with these positions. You sack a pawn, you go down the rabbit hole, and then, the initiative doesn't work out. You're left down material with a terrible pawn structure.
Agreed completely. You need to play e5. That's really what these things are about, is playing e5, opening up your bishop on d3. But as we're talking about, bishop d7, e5, knight g4 not only hits the rook on f2, but gives knight e3 check.
I don't know, bishop, he wants, I guess, knight d7, knight e5, but somehow my tactical senses here are not I don't know. I guess knight d7 here is fine.
Maybe queen a4 instead of queen c2. But the e4 pawn was hanging. So
Knight h5. Okay, so he just abandons. He says that square's not important. He just wants to trade rooks.
Looks pretty smart.
Yeah, not bad at all. It's crazy how the king seemed so unsafe. Now it looks like white's king is the one to worry about, and she's got other things to worry about, like being down a pawn and black having connected passers on the king side.
I want to make e5 work, but I don't think it does. My idea is if the e5, knight g3, king g3, your bishop on g4 is under attack, so I'm happy about that. But you'll just take me back on e5 with the pawn, and then knight f4 check comes in the near future, and I'm not exactly pleased to have given you another pawn.
Right. I mean, e5, this idea of e5 reminds me of me, sort of trying to, like Robert has. It's been, years and years, you keep trying to make it happen, never can make it happen. And just like white can never quite get e5 through.
I don't blame you, if I'm being honest here.
Glad to hear that. But actually, wait, what if queen takes f2? That's very sloppy. Very sloppy by black, because rook f8, you take on f8 and then take on d6.
Yes, this pawn d6 is a weakness. And queen d7 here, trying to go bishop h3. I think the white king can just step aside with like king h1 and play continues.
And that's the thing is black went for this very concrete approach. He made his pieces a little bit flimsy, and now he's paying the price. That pawn on d6 finally comes back to 100. Maybe it's time to dial it back somehow with queen d7. But as you said, yeah, king h1.
Well, king h1, then he'll try to play bishop h3, kick the rook off the f-file, and finally get rook f8. And that is an accomplishment, but I'm also looking after, let's say, king h1, bishop h3, rook g1, rook f8, queen e3, and there's some sacrifices you have to keep an eye out on g5. e5 is still an option for white. You gave her play unnecessarily.
Definitely. Queen e3 played, so...
Oh, that's way better. Don't touch your king. You cover the h3 square and have ideas with e5. No,
exactly. Everything is super coordinated. Rook f8 could be considered, but as you say, rook takes f8 and e5 looks pretty nasty for black.
Oof. And this d pawn, it's becoming a passer. And if you don't take it, not only can I take on d6, I can play e6 and just have a nice protective pawn on e6 with a mating attack to boot. So
that's a bone in black's throw. No, I think de has to be played.
Queen e5, instantly queen. Oh,
bishop e5.
No, queen e5.
Yeah, that was just devastating. Queen h8. Oh. Still, it's very nasty for black, I think.
Agreed, but queen e5 felt so natural there.
Agree. Yeah, now maybe queen f7 somehow, seeking shelter.
But bishop d6 check. I don't
g8.
know. Yeah, you're getting some semblance of safety. Maybe some kind of queen e4 at the right moment for white.
Yep. Well, he's got to make a move. So
queen f7 is good. Play queen f7 with knight f4 check as a threat. Ooh,
should try one.
Queen g4 is the idea. So I would probably play. Queen f2. All right. Bishop f5 coming.
Yeah.
Bishop f5 is
knight f4. Queen takes f4.
Yep. Bishop e6.
Now bishop e6 and resigns. Queen f5 is mate.
It's mate.
Very nice. So Alina, in the end, I feel like that pivotal moment with knight h5. I feel like knight d7, maybe even black had the upper hand.
Yeah, I thought black was doing extremely well, and then all of a sudden, you let white hang around too long, and checkmate happens, and this time in Alina's favor. So after the 5-minute portion, the time is up in this segment. It is 4.5 for Krzysztof Sielecki, 3.5 for Alina Kashlinskaya. We have a very close match in our hands. So we are going to take a short break, and when we return, we'll get into the 3-minute segment, and the action will continue. Among the festivities that will be on Chess.com, I think this is everybody's favorite. Adopt a Danny. And on April 26, 9 a.m. Pacific, it will be Wesley So trying to adopt Danny Wrench in chess, winning 10 games in a row. For those of you not familiar with the lingo, and Danny, well, he's tested his mettle against the likes of Maxime Vachier-Lagrave. It's Wesley So's turn. We all love Wesley, such a friendly guy. And if that were enough Danny Wrench for you, he's joining me in a team chess battle against Spain. And that will be on April 25th. So that's going to be the day before his adopted Danny match. He is going to join me against the Spanish commentary. So it's going to be a fun one there as well. So many pairs of glasses in that photo, except for Danny. He's letting us down. But before then, we have Title Tuesday. Tomorrow is Tuesday. Danya Nerditsky and I are title players. So that means we should probably play Blitz tomorrow, right, Danya?
Yeah, and the field, we should say, in these Title Tuesdays is absolutely stacked. So fun tournament to play. And if you can't play, absolutely tune in to watch. You know, it's always just a dogfight at the top. And speaking of dogfights, of course, European Online Chess Championship coming May 16th. We won't be able to play in that, but that'll be a fun tournament as well.
Do you think there's enough time to somehow change our federations with FIDE and then try to plan that?
I think, there just might be. There's a little bit less than a month. I think it's. I think we should just change it, play in this tournament, and then change it back. Would that be possible?
If you were going to change to a European federation, which would it be?
Maybe I would. Russia probably, but.
But then there's too many strong players there, so you don't get to play on
that Olympic team. At the same time, I can pretend to be Christoph Sielecki and change it to Germany, but it really depends on which accent I feel like.
Well, before we return to Christoph, we'll remind everybody the Premium Arena, there will be large prize funds, 2 hours of 3-0 Blitz for premium members only. And it's going to be very, very fun. Streaming prizes for titled and non-titled players. So join away May 3rd. But that's not now. What is now is a 3-minute segment of this IM GM Speed Chess Championship between Elena Kashlinskaya and Christoph Sielecki and Danya Sielecki, if he continues with that accent.
Thank you, Robert. But before we start looking at the games, there's also the State of Chess.com on April 28th, right after Title Tuesday. That's a week from tomorrow, hosted by Danny. So if you want to know what's going on, be sure to tune in after Title Tuesday, a week from tomorrow. And they are off on the 3-minute portion.
And we have these Knight C6, Knight F6 tango that continues to happen. And Queen C2 Nimza met with Knight C6. And the Knight C6 often is awkward because you want to play C5 and put pressure on the center. He chooses these E5 variations. We've seen this time and time again. And Alina, in the early stages of this 3-minute portion, playing very quickly, more quickly than we've seen her play in the prior time segment. So I do think she's going to speed up, which she has to do in this format.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a different animal, by the way. Christoph avoiding D6, which would have lost a bishop there to Queen A4 check.
Yep. Check.
And yeah, it's just a completely, I think 2 minutes less than similar. I even feel different watching these games. I really feel like this is Blitz. This is super fast pace. You got to keep the pace going. No time to take, a minute and a half on a critical moment. In the 5-minute portion, you could really get away with that.
Right. And I like White's position here. I love the bishop pair. Black is developed, is castled. Watch out for an E4 shot. Doesn't work now, but rook E8 sort of setting that up. Knight D2 very quickly played by Alina. And it was interesting. She chose Knight F3 to D2 very quickly. I was thinking Knight E2 to G3, but it's just a matter of style, and she did it fast. That's all that matters in this stage of the game. She's conserving some time for now after H6. So I want to castle queenside and maybe play H3, G4, Rook G1, and play for G5. I know it's ambitious, but she is down 1 point in the match. Not that that's a big deal, but she decides, hey, I'm going to be safe and sound, castle kingside. So
I think
no, go ahead. I was going to ask for your opinion, so go give it.
I think White's better in these positions. I've always disliked the problem of having a pawn on E5, right? It doesn't look like it matters. But all of these squares along the D file, including D5 and D6, are weak. The knight on D5, even if you take the bishop, White takes. White always has this knight E4, knight D6 ideas. She can put the bishop on C4. I feel like White holds most of the cards in a position like this, although bishop G4 is very strong for warding the rook off the D file.
Right. But you don't want to play F3. You lose the pawn E3.
Exactly. But somehow, even here, I feel like rook C8, maybe Alina's butchered this a little bit.
Yeah, rook FD1 seems imprecise because bishop G4 came with the tempo and Christoph was able to finish his development. But I do agree with you conceptually that the D file, there are a lot of squares where white wants to jump into, and knight E4 is one idea. Bishop E4 is another that can be frustrating, especially after a knight capture on C3. Just, even if you won't take on C6, just the thought has to be in black's head every single move. Is my opponent going to take that knight or just leave it there? And I do think that black is equalized at this point. But Alina now puts her other rook on D1, take on C3. Take that piece at some point.
Take
maybe
that
knight D4.
Tear Mr. Gorbachev, tear down that wall. Yeah, knight D4. But then queen B4, we enter the skirmish.
Yep. Unclear.
Absolutely unclear, but you don't have to go knight D4. I agree. Knight takes C3, queen C3, even queen A5 there. Although that's probably a bad move, but just black needs to find a solid move in that position. Maybe queen H4.
There's no rush to take this bishop because it can't move. So that is something to keep in mind, because I know a lot of players who are watching may say, oh, I want to take that bishop, so I'm going to go with it. But you can wait a turn. So
well, he does necessary. Take the bishop, and Alina takes the pawn.
That's an interesting choice. Probably not wanting to give that tempo away with the rook on the C file.
It's kind of prudent. Maybe knight E4, bishop H7, bishop E4 probably to follow.
Yep.
Bishop F5, yeah, but no. But now I feel like white's definitely worse.
You don't like those queenside pawns. The split pawns are not good. White has no attack to speak of. Black has no weaknesses. It's only white with the weaknesses. Queen F5. So that's why bishop H7 check was important. You get to make a move like queen F5 because if the king were on G8, the pawn would be protected. But look, Christoph had to spend a turn to play king G8. Just like Alina threw a bishop to H7 and back to F5, the king had to come back to G8. Knight E4 now protecting this pawn C3. There is no F5 for black because the queen's on the square. G6 opens up many squares and is a weakening move.
Yeah.
So I like what Alina did just there. Bishop H7, bishop F5.
Yeah, and knight C5 here is even something to be considered. I mean, she's playing very practical, right? I mean, she's playing fast enough and she's adapting.
I like that move too.
H4, constantly forcing Christoph to be the one to make decisions about how to change the position.
Oh, I love this. G4, G5's coming.
Very, very fundamental and good play here. Yeah, knight B7, which I also like. He's going to knight D7. Quality of play, I like what both sides are doing here.
So do I. Rook takes D8 followed by rook D1. That's why the queen dropped back to G4. Now knight D6. The queen is done F5, where it would have been under attack, and forced a series of trades. Now the trades are not forced. A move like rook to D5 is one you'd want to play, but after knight takes E4, the C3 pawn at the end of these variations is hanging, and that's really interesting.
Jettison that pawn, but queen H4.
Ooh, okay. Can't move that knight away. Or you can do B7 to protect the rook, but you can't take on E4 like you want to. And so queen H4.
So rook C8 is played, getting the rook out of the pin.
And if I'm Alina, I'm playing rook D5. Okay, she didn't go for it, but I was trying to get some kind of rook D5, rook D1 situation happening quickly, but she was probably worried about a pin along the fourth rank, right? The knight on E4 would have been pinned to the queen. So
wow,
she wants knight F5.
Brave.
She wants knight F5, and that's what she's setting up. Some kind of rook takes D6, knight F5.
Yes.
Be very careful.
And now E4 maybe.
E4.
Sectioning off like black's pieces.
I like it. And I don't know what she had to think about there. Like she set everything up perfectly. And rook takes D6 is a nasty threat. Even sometimes you can sacrifice your rook on E1 with check because knight F5 is so strong with the G7 pawn. Okay,
well,
now
he's trying to induce it. Rook E3. Queen D7 is also interesting.
Queen D7 or rook E3 with the threat of rook takes D6.
I like it even more.
Man.
Wow, a rook E3 might actually be. What does black do after rook E3?
Probably queen C2, so that you can go after the F2 pawn. So rook E3, queen C2.
But as you say, maybe even there rook takes D6.
Yeah, I'm not positive about the consequences here, but looks scary.
Alina's got to decide on a course of action in about 4 seconds.
Okay.
It's coming in 3, 2.
She needs to go.
Yep.
She does it.
Wow.
Brave decision there.
Super brave decision, but I'm not sure. Queen takes F2 for starters. I think just ends. Well, maybe not.
Yeah.
Queen F2, knight F5, rook F5. No, he goes for it.
G6, I guess, but then knight takes D6, rook G6, H6. That looks too scary. Queen takes G7, knight takes D6 to the 4.
Knight C4.
Knight D6 to the 4.
Oh!
Queen F7
still winning. Still winning. King D8 though.
Rook, queen F8 check, and then
queen
D6, and then queen D5.
D5 and knight E7.
Yep. So she ends up. Oh, just take the rook now.
Okay, take the rook. Yeah.
Holy cow.
The only thing White needs to avoid here is some sort of accidental perpetual.
Right, because if you move the knight away, queen h4, queen e1 would be
so precise taking on e5. Look at that queen. That was beautiful by Alina.
Oh my gosh. See, that was the kind of double-edged game that you need to win for your confidence in a match like this. Neither Christoph nor Alina played poorly that game. That game was decided in the balance when Alina said, I'm just going to sack and I'm going for it. She should have made that decision sooner because Christoph had the time advantage at that point, but it was so richly complicated that Christoph was up 2 rooks for a knight at one point, but the threat of checkmate was overwhelming for him to deal with. So really great tactical vision by Alina to put her queen on g4, play h4, h5 earlier. I really liked how she handled that game.
Me too. And she's got to go for those positions. Christoph still, he's such a strong player as we see, but he does struggle with calculation under duress. When he's got little time left, he's just a slower calculator. So Alina's absolutely correct to take these risks. That's what she's got to do, especially as the time, as they enter the 3-minute portion and there's less time to begin with.
And this is a game that is definitely to Christoph's liking because
absolutely,
you say she needs to take some risk, try to play for an initiative. I'm sorry, but how are you going to get that from the black side here? 94. Okay, you try to change the dynamic of the board, but okay, my king can just start entering. I could take on e4, king d2, king e3. Then I give a d5 square. So he doesn't want to cede anything. He's saying, I'm making no concessions. In fact, now the knight can't get to d5.
Now go f5, I think. Okay.
Yeah, he's bringing the knight into c4, d6 kind of thing, but knight f6 to d5 scares me.
Yeah, I feel like f5 might have been very strong instead. But he knows what he's playing so quickly. I feel like he's had these types of positions so many times. He might be one of the most experienced players. With that being said, I'm not exactly sure whether it's worth giving black this massive square on d5.
Yeah, I think he's going to give up the b pawn. So I'll play e3, king e2, so take my b4 pawn. And that's the great thing about White's pawn structure. The pawn on c5 with the knight on c4 take care of both of these black pawns on b7 and a6. So the b4 pawn's not that important. So play e3, play king e2, double in the g5 with a rook g6, rook g1. And I'm not saying that White is better necessarily, but I don't think White is really worse.
Yeah, and maybe practically speaking, he's got the initiative. Christoph may be thinking about knight e3, but
he's also thinking about b5, I would imagine.
b5, yeah, just giving that pawn and trying to ram stuff through.
Knight e3 actually is a good move.
Knight e3?
I think so. Just stopping knight d5, attacking f5.
Yeah, and I was thinking, knight e3.
Knight h5 maybe?
Knight h5, yeah. And then king t2 maybe.
So he does go for e3. And okay, so there he goes. He sacrifices the b pawn, and I think Alina has to take it. I don't really see anything.
That's exactly what happens, yeah.
So here comes rook g1. So king h7 probably is
h4, h5, maybe cement the rook there, although
then knight f6 comes, yeah.
Yep. I feel like h4 is a Christoph move, but
where does the white knight belong, Danya? When I look at a position like this, I'm like, is the knight perfect on c4, or what's your realistic dream square you want to get that piece to? Knight d6.
Yeah, I was thinking about knight d6, and I also know what you're saying, because keeping the knight on c4 yields the flexibility of putting on an e5 potentially. There's a tactical idea White has to be a little bit careful about, which was knight f6, knight g4, but I guess knight f6 is the no pass zone now.
Right, because of that f5 pawn. So you put b5,
interesting,
and that clarifies the queen side and gives black counterplay. Then king on e2 might fall victim to a swift rook b8, knight d5, and the b2 pawn falls.
And all of a sudden, White's king is in grave danger.
Yeah. So rook e6 was the attempt. Rook e5 to go for the f5 pawn. That feels a little slow. Just maybe knight. I would say knight a4, but knight d5 is way more practical.
Interesting stuff going on, and Christoph getting low on time. Rook b8. That's actually a humongous threat, Robert.
Yeah, just go right after the b2 pawn.
And what does White even do? Knight c4, rook b4? Is White lost?
It looks pretty bad to me. Rook b1, knight c3 check is devastating. Forktown winning the rook. So rook b8 played. And, well, this is how good-looking positions fall apart. You give up a pawn, and then all of a sudden you're going for initiative. Your initiative fizzles out, and it's black's the one still up a pawn and just going down the b file.
Yeah, I will be back in 2 seconds. Just
Okay.
to end that microwave beeping.
Knight takes f5 here by Christoph. Okay, he's still a pawn. The e4 pawn might fall next. And I think it's a great practical choice. But rook b7, great move by Alina, going for checkmating ideas. She can just swing this rook to a2, bring the next rook to b1, and that's check.
I missed the action.
You missed barely anything, don't worry. Also, g6 was a move that black could have considered and can still consider, kicking this knight away from f5 and going right after the e3 pawn.
So yes, and now g6 now.
G6 now looks good. A5.
A5, man, that's such a Russian school chess move. Just push that pawn. Look at that knight on d5, just holding the world on his shoulders.
So the idea for white is rook e8, h5, knight h4, knight g6. It's not going to happen, but here's rook e8.
By the time that happens, Robert, I mean, it's going to be the winner of 2025.
I'm just pointing out that this is one of those ideas of desperation. It doesn't work. It shouldn't work. It will not work. And what's wrong with a3, a2? She's thinking because she has so much time.
Yeah, and you definitely, the tortoise and the hare fable comes into play here. Sometimes you get so smug and complacent, you don't realize how quickly these mating ideas come. In this specific instance, total domination by black, and another excellent performance by Alina. Just clutch in the critical moments. She finds a way to complicate the game enough, and Christoph kind of loses the thread in these complicated tactical battles.
And she's had enough of knight c6, and he's had enough of knight c6 because she went e3, which would make the move knight c6 not nearly as good. And he plays for a more mainline opening choice. And I like the decision by him because I honestly think some of the games from his perspective, from the black side, Alina has received an advantage. So here he's saying, okay, I need to go to something more main. I know this stuff. I write content on it. I do videos on it. Let me go to it now. And also that can discombobulate your opponent. All of a sudden you're like, whoa, I'm frazzled because he was playing this other opening all game, and now he goes to this kind of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And Christoph is adhering to a certain strategy. It's the right strategy. I think he's going for his types of positions. He shouldn't panic. But with that said, I like white's position again. Despite the presence of this d5 square, it's a typical IQP position, but white's pieces are very active here. Maybe queen g3, maybe rook a1. I myself am not a big expert in these positions, so I can't make too many good suggestions here.
I like that move, though. It's giving away a pawn to try to get opposite colored bishop.
But you can't, but bishop g4. ED might have won an exchange there.
Oh, my gosh.
Or even more.
Wow. What a oversight by both players and me. As a commentator, the bishop g4, skewering the queen and the rook, that was nice.
And this is the one thing I think these players, the one source of mistakes that's been consistent, easy for me to say, but they're sometimes going too quickly down a line that they pre-plan. And that's a common mistake in general. You calculate a line, and then once you initiate it, you don't stop to look at other moves like intermediate moves or alternate ideas. Yeah,
because, I can speak for myself. My mind was so focused on just a series of trades, liquidation, opposite colored bishop should be a draw. That's like the grandmaster foresight going on. Just like, this is what's going to happen. This is what should happen. And then you just forget about a very simple other recapture, e takes d5, and you're like, oh, because under other circumstances, e takes d5 would be a bad recapture in that position.
Right. Positional, these considerations transcend the positional drawbacks.
For sure. And I think that Alina, she's hoping that she can just play this one out because, there's just under 29 minutes at this point remaining in the 3-minute portion, but she's up a pawn, no risk in her position. And yes, Christoph is playing quickly, confidently, and well, and this should be a draw, but white is the one with the advantage thus far, so keep on playing. There's no risk here.
Yep, definitely. And I don't think she's got her chances of, winning are too serious, but you never know. That extra pawn is still an extra pawn. I like bishop h6. She's going to go king e3.
I thought she was going to play g4, king g3, but instead she went for bishop h6. It has to be the king up.
Interesting.
Because the d4 pawn, you don't want to lose that one, obviously.
Right. And and like you said, she wants to drag this one out. Wear Christoph down a little bit as well. Even if the game ends in a draw, these psychological factors, as we discussed, cannot be understated.
But I mean, seriously, the quality of this match has been phenomenal.
Absolutely.
And the play itself has been super solid. This has not been a wild set of games where any moment someone can blunder. It's been just, all right, now we're just going to see a draw.
Yeah, that's just a draw.
Interesting decision there. I guess there's still so much time in the 3-minute portion. Alina does have the lead, but you can't think about like the end result just yet. We are, at least I'm not privy to know what Christoph's bullet skills are like. I have no idea. He might be very good at bullet.
I don't know either of their bullet skills, what they're like.
And if you're unconfident in your own bullet skills, you don't want to just rely on the bullet because it can become a toss-up. And for Alina, I think this has been her segment. She's in the lead. She's up 2.5 to half at this point in the 3-minute portion. So you want to keep the good times going, get more 3-1 games in.
Definitely. She's playing confidently. We haven't exchanged French, but obviously Christoph's not playing this to make a draw. He's going with a C4 line, which I've seen before. Now he gets the opposite side of an IQP where, well, actually he's trying to cling to that pawn. And I think the battle will revolve around whether Alina will be able to win back that pawn on C5. If she does, obviously Black's going to be in excellent shape.
It's got this Caro-Kann vibe to it, doesn't it, Danya, where there are some Panov lines where you give up your D5 pawn and then you just work to regain it, and White spends all of their energy trying to save that pawn. So right now, Queen B4, please take me. I will take with my A pawn, kick your knight out, take the D5 pawn back, but Alina can just drop her queen to A2, for instance. And it's a weird square for a queen, but at least it protects D5. It keeps everything safe and sound. Queen C2 being the alternative that makes totally logical sense.
Yeah, I like Queen C2 as well. And of course, Bishop takes C4 is not gonna happen. That's just way too dangerous, and White can take on D4, go Knight B5. So yeah, I mean Bishop G4 maybe, but Black has to be very cautious here because she can slip into one of those very unpleasant positions here if she's not able to win that pawn in the next few moves.
And she might be doing the reverse of what happened last game, where she may give up the C7 pawn for the D5 pawn, be down a pawn, but claim the 2 bishops as compensation.
Yeah, I thought about this move D6 actually, because Rook takes D6, the queen is almost trapped, Knight A2, but then Queen takes A4. I'm not sure concretely this works if Rook takes D6.
So this is a smart time for her to think. She has conserved her time very well. She's up 20 seconds on the clock.
Knight E4.
And Rook takes D6.
Bishop F5, it's crazy. Knight E4, Bishop F5.
Yep. C7 is hanging, but you're
right. So maybe we'll end up seeing a position, as you said, Rob, you predicted that when Knight E4, Bishop F5, you take on F6, take on C7. But I kind of like Black's position there. I think she's got good compensation.
Yeah. I think that White probably is happy to achieve a position like that. But you're right. Black certainly has compensation thanks to the piece play. And Knight E4 played.
Now, Rook C6 would be nice. The problem is Knight takes F6, of course, is check. So this happens.
And she played Bishop F5 very quickly.
Good time management.
For sure. So Queen takes C7. You just have to do that if you're Christoph. Take that pawn. You're probably worried about some kind of Knight D5, Knight F4. That's what would concern me at least. But I guess the Queen can slide back to even C5 and try to trade queens off the board. Because the last thing you want to see happen is exactly Bishop E4, Knight D5, Knight F4, and the attack sort of comes out of nowhere. And White's king doesn't really have too many pieces over there protecting it.
Yeah, and he's got to tread very cautiously. Now the thing is, maybe then D4 hangs. It's hard to, maybe Rook A3, some sort of generally cementing move, but B2 is also hanging. This is a headache.
Yeah, Queen takes B2.
Exactly. Queen B2, and then that queen on C5 is misplaced. It starts falling apart again.
The bishop on E4 is excellent. It was protecting B7. It covers B1.
That was such a good move.
Yeah.
And playing so fast.
Christoph, now he's down over a minute on the clock, and Alina, at some point soon, you'll see her think probably for like 20 seconds. Because I think players struggle with this, Danya, and you can speak to this better than I can. When you're up a lot of time, some people try to move very quickly to flag their opponent, but the position might call for you to actually spend some time and figure out the right way forward. So right now, if you have Alina's position, how much time are you spending? How are you figuring this out?
You're playing slowly. I mean, you're spending, minimum 3-5 seconds per move. At the same time, if you're confident in a move, it's obviously not a bad idea to play relatively fast. So there's a middle ground here. You're not pre-moving. You're not doing
doing anything foolish here, I would think for like 10 seconds and probably play queen b4, queen b6. And that's exactly what she's doing. At the same time, I wouldn't tell myself I have an infinite amount of time and then let that slip into a time scramble.
Yeah, it would just be a lie if you told yourself an infinite amount of time. So I'm glad you didn't tell yourself.
Yeah, I didn't lie. No.
Knight f4 or rook
c6.
c6. Yeah, we both had the same thought. Like, which of these two moves?
This is painful.
Yeah, knight takes e2 followed by bishop takes f3 is good. Ooh, knight h3 check.
Ooh.
Knight h3.
This is
there. It is.
Look, Alina is, and she's on top right now.
You distract the pawn. You take rook g6 mate is a deadly threat. Just take on g2, take on d4. I would do that pretty quickly.
Yes, exactly. Practical. You know it's good. Exactly.
There it is. Oh my gosh, do I take that? I think I take it and take on a4.
Yeah, exactly. Just no question. You know that's completely winning. And that's the thing. Don't look for rook g6, queen d5, maybe also winning. There's no need to do that when you see something that immediately forces resignation. I don't like queen d5 quite as much. I think Alina didn't see that pawn was hanging, maybe.
Well, rook a6 is something I would consider for black. Like bring that second rook up.
So then queen c8, queen f5, maybe white stays in the game.
But there's rook g6 check as a response there too.
Robert, stop. Stop it.
Mate on d1.
Mate on the board.
Wow.
Such an impressive, actually two very impressive games by Alina.
Yeah, that was really impressive. And for Christoph, he just got outplayed. There's no way around it. So Alina catching fire
showing
right now.
mastery on both sides of the IQP.
Okay, we're back to knight c6. So last time Alina played e3 before queen c2, and this time she played queen c2 first, and knight c6 is more logical. These little nuances are hard to follow for less experienced players, but that's why we see the players change their mind. And I think for Alina, she's now feeling really confident. She's up 2 games, but again, we don't know how they're feeling heading into the bullet, and that's still a ways away. But when you think of the overall match strategy, you're like, how many points ahead should I be entering the bullet for me to feel really confident about my winning chances?
Yeah, and I mean, I have a hunch that this is going to be decided in bullet. Now, Christoph, again, he's very experienced, and that's where that comes into play. He's not going to tilt. He's very level-headed. At the same time, you can just sense Alina's confidence, and she's projecting it, and her play is, their time management is perfect. Her play is powerful. You can just sense the energy behind her. As my coach would always say, when someone's confident, you can feel the energy in their moves. And I think we're seeing that here.
We are. She's playing more quickly. Christoph, though, to his credit, in this game is playing quite quickly, but I like the 2 bishops. There's a lot of open space on this board. B4 for white is one of those double-edged moves where you're gaining space, but then C4 becomes a potential target. And A5 can go A4 from black's point of view, saying, let me undermine the protection, but now especially after knight d2, that pawn c4 is so well defended that I wouldn't really want to play a4 because that puts your pawn on a weak square. A4, I play b4. I don't even take it. And then later I'll play queen c2 or something like that and can go after the pawn if I want. So you want to play a4 on one hand. On the other, it does create a weakness. I would think about a4 for white, not necessarily here, but keep that idea in my head. And d5 for black is one that you probably want to accomplish, but then you're thinking about c5. So I think d5 works, though.
Yeah, d5. I think it's time because, as you pointed out, there's a sense of urgency black has to feel in these types of positions.
Yeah. And besides d5, he plays d5.
Yeah, he does it.
He didn't feel that same sense of urgency in terms of how much time to spend on it, but he played it. And I like that decision by Alina. She made that move very quickly. And if we just scroll back here, c5 is tempting to kick the knight out, but the knight comes to d7 and then c5 feels weak. Instead, she said, hey, I have 2 bishops here. Now my knight is going right over to g3.
The thing is, maybe I can take on b3. Can I get away with that because there's this a4?
Aha, she just forgot about the pawn over there.
But bishop e5 is possible here.
Bishop takes e5?
Yeah, but then maybe queen takes a3.
Ooh, then bishop c7.
Ah, nice. Wow.
So
and this isn't, some of you might be thinking maybe a4 by black to keep the tension.
Yep.
And then knight a5, knight c4. That does obviously permit white to keep this super strong bishop, but I just feel like if you take on e5, again, white's super comfortable there.
Right. Because the problem is his pawn should be on a7, not on a5.
Yep. He does take on a3. What is he planned on bishop c7?
Bishop a2, then just queen a1. No. So
or queen b6. Bishop a2, queen b6.
Oh, that's even better. Yep. Okay. I was like, oh, I don't want to hang my rook on c1, but the rook on d8 will be attacked twice in that variation.
I think he's blundered it.
Yeah, he doesn't seem. You don't allow bishop c7 and then start thinking, right? If you've intentionally allowed it, you move quickly. But queen b4 does give some real
rook
counterplay.
c6.
And Alina misses it. I think white is definitely still, very much in the driver's seat. But rook c6, again, notice, not to harp on this, but intermediate moves. These moves that happen sort of at the end of variations, which you might not think about. Very important to keep your eyes peeled for something you might not have anticipated when you first calculated the variation.
Totally agreed.
Now, actually, sounds crazy, but maybe white needs to find a way to deal with that a pawn. That
bishop
pawn
d1
is running fast.
Bishop d1 would be my move. There it is.
And it is Alina's move as well. a4.
Take that thing and, oh my gosh, I guess you're
knight d2 is interesting here.
That's what I was looking at. I was trying to go knight d2. She was queen d3. She wants to go rook b1 and win the pawn, but the black pawn wants to go to b2, followed with knight a4. Maybe it's not that easy to get to that pawn.
Yeah, I'm not so sure about queen d3. Exactly. b2, knight a4.
Is there knight c4?
Yeah, b5, and then you take on b2 and go queen c2.
Yep, exactly. And I get your...
and that's exactly what she does now. Christoph has to find a resource here. I'm sure he has something. Maybe knight c... No.
I'm not sure he has something.
Maybe queen c5.
Maybe knight a5.
Uh-huh.
Queen c5 is also interesting. You're being clever here, that if you take on b2, you end up losing your rook because of queen c1 check at the end, where the rook is unprotected and the king has to move.
Yeah, I wasn't being fastidious.
Knight a5 though, that also queen d8 check.
Queen d8, wow. But even there, king h7.
Yeah, knight a5, knight c3 kind of thing.
Yeah, he goes b5, but that's just...
Yeah.
He's starting to miss a lot of tactics that normally he would miss.
Yeah, queen c2 hits both knights at the same time. The knight on b2 is pinned. And you would want to play a move like knight c4 and hope that your two knights in the passed pawn could work against the queen, but it's not happening here. Queen
not
takes
happening,
b2.
yeah. Yep.
Just queen b2 wins the b5 pawn and with it the game.
And notice, again, a minute left at the end of the game. Such just silky smooth time management by Alina. She's leaving herself plenty of time for critical moments, and it's coming in handy again and again. Christoph is in trouble here. He needs to get out of the tailspin basically ASAP with 15 minutes left. And what are your thoughts on how his approach should change?
Well, it's a big problem that you don't have time to recover, right? You lose a game, and then you immediately have to start the next game. You don't get a 5-minute break. And it's not a problem with the format, just that's how it is. And so unlike a Blitz tournament in real life where you lose a game and then you get to walk around when everybody else is finishing their game, or a Title Tuesday, for instance, where if I lose to Danya, the next game won't start for a couple of minutes. I have time to breathe, to recover, etc. Here it's like, well, I was up +2. I was up 2 games in this match. Now I'm down 3 games. What has happened? And now you're just kind of in your own head about the match score.
Yeah, you're shell-shocked. You start replaying the moments. But here, I think he's just got to go for it. I think he's got to take some risks, take it and play e4.
Yep.
And sometimes you just got to say, I'm going to make a statement with my game. And I don't care how everything has gone. I'm going to make a statement. And he's got to come back 1 point at a time. Like, he's got to realize what's happened happens, and he's got to play the long game.
This looks great for white, by the way.
It does. I think they've repeated a line in which Alina, I think, won. But this time, Christoph modifies the strategy, plays e4 a lot faster. I actually think black's in a world of hurt here.
No, she lost that game with the rook takes f7 check. That crazy.
Oh, right. Okay, you're right. Yeah.
Bishop b4 check, good move because you want to get your king out of dodge, but h6 is hanging, so you can't even castle very easily.
Well, I think you should. I think you should just give away all the pawns, whatever, just c6, h6. King safety is the top priority, I think.
Yeah, so king f1 would be my move here.
And then I would castle for black.
So king f1, castles, knight f6 check, knight f6, right? Queen takes c6 or something like that. And actually, queen c6 is queen a6 check. That's not very nice.
Right. He goes king f2, interestingly. She does castle. And again, I like how quickly she castled.
Very good practical decisions being made.
Yes. I maybe would consider knight f6, bishop c6.
And I don't like the kings on f2 because it's some kind of knight g4 checks. That like
Right,
really
which is why
me.
he plays h, but h3 just has the ring of something that's now knight d5 even.
Well, h6 is still hanging, right? So it's
that's true. Yeah, I didn't realize that.
But you're right. Maybe just knight d5, give up the h pawn, and then play rook f to e8 and go for an f5 push. The king is on f2, so knight d5, bishop h6, rook f e8, threaten f5, open the lines up against this king.
I think white has this eventual plan of castling by hand. I mean, rook hf1, king g1, but I think the battle is going to be almost decided by white's ability to ensure the safety of his king.
Right.
Or lack thereof, of course.
It's been taking some time over the board, but Christoph is ahead on the clock, so that's pretty essential here.
g5. Okay.
Do I just take on f6 and like bishop e5?
Yeah, that's what I'm worried. But then I guess knight d7.
Or maybe knight d5 too. Both moves probably adequate.
Yeah, well, black's got to be careful because like h4 or bishop e4 but knight c5 threatens, and it doesn't really threaten f6.
No. It can. After knight d5, bishop e4, you still don't have f6 because bishop takes d5 check and my queen gets in. But bishop e4 threatens bishop h7 checkmate. What a nasty checkmate.
Yeah. So knight d7 makes sense.
Yep.
And this is an important position, I feel like. I actually feel like knight e5 is a very big threat because that's going to be followed by bishop c5 check, drawing white's king further into the center.
And queen takes c6, you get away with knight takes e5 because you start trading queens, then at the end of this, black is rook c2 check, and that's a big problem.
I think a3 might be preferable for white because you really want to get rid of that bishop. a3, knight takes c5, a takes b4.
Ooh, that's really smart. Something that most people would not think of.
Smart,
but
thank you. You're showering me with compliments here, but I don't think you should do this. I mean, this is a big mistake.
It's ugly, the pawn structure, but a3, that sequence definitely looks good for white. The bishop on g2 is so strong. Instead, we see rook d1 and the king trying to run it. Bishop c5 check. You made that point that, okay, now it's just great for black. Yeah,
everything is in the game. f6 is for now there's queen g6 check, but.
Right. So don't play f6 here. But f6 is a great idea if there's not for queen g6. There's a king h8 or something.
How about rook a4?
Oh, you are an evil man.
I actually think that might work.
Rook a4 takes queen f5, king e2, queen f2 check, king d3, and there. Even if there's not
a check,
just queen takes g2 is good.
Oh yeah, also
rook
that.
d8 check is.
Sorry, I couldn't resist.
No, just something like this is brutal. It's totally brutal. Oh, b5 check is probably better. Just winning the queen. Yikes. Ugh.
f5. But now, I think queen takes c6 concretely. Actually, wait, black might be in huge trouble, Robert, because bishop d5 becomes a huge threat. That f5 might have been a mistake.
No, queen c6, queen c4, exactly.
See, she sees everything.
Queen c4. Queen c4. You have
savage Violina. I don't even know if she's, and there we go.
Yeah,
savage Violina.
I don't know if necessarily she saw it right away, but her intuition was that queen takes c6 is not possible. And then just putting it all together. Yeah, that king has made it.
And it's not luck. Sometimes I mentioned this last game, you might look and say, she had this one resource. It's a matter of confidence and general play. When you play well, when there's energy behind your moves, there's also more tactical resources. And the luck is kind of on your side. So it's all connected. It's not just, there's a freak resource here and here. It's all in the play. And all in a play, and I forget. I'm so sorry. I can't help myself. I have a problem.
I love it when you explain chess to me. I didn't need you because I already have chess explained on the line. But I appreciate all your insights. Seriously, that game was very instructive for a variety of reasons. We were talking about how white had the initiative, blasted the center open, but then dilly-dallied h3, and then moves that were just too slow, and the position called for more activity.
That windup was longer than Dirk Nowitzki's release, but I'll give you a pass.
The hang time on those shots, just falling away, knee 6 feet off the ground or whatever height that was. We see this position again for like the millionth time, by the way.
This structure with d65, that's going to be my dreams today or my nightmares.
Um,
And it's not, yeah, I mean, it's not like Kristoff has been having bad positions in the structure, but it's somehow he mistimed some of these advances. E4. Wait,
yeah,
Robert,
wait, what?
E4 won a piece.
That's a big missed opportunity.
That is a big mutual blunder. E4, Bishop F6, ED, another intermediate move.
Because you take the queen, I take on C2, and it hits your rook. If the rook were not on D1, the bishop could escape, and white would be fine. But the rook's under attack, so you lose a bishop. So that was a missed chance. I wonder if he knows.
E4.
E4. What?
E4 wins a piece.
Well, now it's less clear, but he should go E4.
Still, oh my, no, but E4 Bishop F6 is still winning.
Yep.
Unbelievable. And they're taking too much for granted here. I think they've had this position so many times. Okay, now finally E4, there's Bishop F6.
Yes. I still want to play E4 just because it's been on the table for such a while.
That is a big missed opportunity. He needs to win this game. Otherwise it's really going to get out of hand. With 7 minutes left in the 3-minute portion, if he can bring it back at least 1 point, that's going to help him immensely in terms of trying to make a comeback in the 1 minute section.
Alina should think about, I was going to say knight H4 to F5, just getting adventurous over there, but the C4 pawn is too much of a weakness. So, I mean, sometimes you can sacrifice it, like knight H4, knight F5, giving up the C4 pawn for an attack on D6, but it's not the right moment. So bishop B3, now knight H4 is out the window, it doesn't do anything. So what is white's strategy here?
Yeah, I mean, maybe knight D2. Alina's played it that way a couple times, and then maybe E4. Although that's both a blessing and a curse because it burdens white with that pawn.
Right.
Maybe white's strategy is to ask what black's strategy is.
Maybe knight E4 here for black, just being active.
Yeah, queen B8. I kind of like this type of chess. Maybe rookies. I don't know. Again, this is just not.
White's just first over here. B5, all right? So it's saying, Robert, you're wrong. C5 is something that comes to mind, trying to get the E5 pawn. But I do believe that the bishops can be exchanged on B3, then just take on C5, and you're not getting what you really, really want to get.
Yeah, and then B4, queen B5, for example. So
do I take on B5? Because if they're queen B5, bishop A4 or something like this could be a bit of a nuisance.
Definitely. Alina does play C5.
Okay. And we see this trade. Knight E4 is one move. B4 first, I think is better. Queen B5.
Queen B5. Then maybe queen A4 actually is an interesting try.
Yep. Queen A4, rook B8. Just keep that
takes
tension.
and takes on E5.
I forgot E5 was hanging. You're totally right. But queen A4, the point's queen takes C5, rook C1. Down goes this knight on C6. It's attacked twice. So don't blunder that. Rook C1 played. I think that's the more like when there's pressure on you and you're playing a tough match, that's the move that comes very instinctively. But I don't love it because knight A5 and pushing that B pawn feels like an opportunity for black. Not to mention that the E pawn can go to E4 if you so choose, but then you give it the D4 square. Tough position for both because there's knight A5. I think that's logical.
Very much so. Queen C2. Now E5, that E5 pawn bucks. Kristoff's got to be a little bit careful about that pawn.
And now queen F5 is also it.
Yeah, but I would even think about repeating and just second. Well, queen F5 played.
She loves that square.
Queen E2 maybe is, but then bishop E5.
Queen E2, there's also rook C2.
Right, queen D1, I thought, and then E4, but that's also speculative. There's rook D2 there.
Yeah, there might be just bishop takes F6 at some moment, checkmating your king.
Wow, and look at the time situation. Once again, Alina making these decisions so fast. And just very impressive because she gets up on time and now Kristoff has to make all these decisions. He's got 30 seconds left now.
And what Kristoff's he's really saying, hello, darkness, my old friend. Look at him.
Yeah, he really is.
I'm a little worried.
And you can see by he is just not happy right now.
Yeah, he played B3, which I think is a good fighting move because if you take on E5, your bishop has to leave the B2 square. And that, at the very least, causes some nerves. And actually, just tactically, knight E5, knight E5, bishop E5, B2, rook B1, queen takes C5. There's a pin on this bishop.
Very good point.
E5. And
no, but he's finding, and B3 was an excellent move. He's finding these moves. If I were Alina here, I might even consider king H2. Just saying, again, toss the ball into black's court.
If we can't have basketball in real life, we might as well have basketball references by
Man.
Daniel Nardisky.
Don't remind me. I miss it.
So knight d2 played, and then in comes the knight to b4, trying to get to that d3 square with a fork on the rook on c1 and the bishop on b2. Knight c4 played.
Cutting him off.
Book c5. Can I take that?
Knight a2 also, by the way. But the knight d6. My gosh.
Take on
My
c5.
lands. But knight takes c5.
I'm okay giving up that pawn.
That's true. Queen d5 is stabilized. I'm not sure knight c2 is that, because that knight is kind of maybe out of place.
Yeah, it's pinned to this queen. So there's
Even
multiple
queen
pins.
d3, Robert, and then rook takes c5, maybe queen takes b3.
Nice little tactic there. That way there's a pin on this knight to this queen on c5.
Okay, but Christoph finding some good moves here. Queen d5 instantly.
Excellent. This pawn on b3 is
94.
94.
94 is very, very strong here.
You're worried about 94 because it gets the knight off the diagonal, but there
He
it is,
does it.
94. It's a good move.
c7. Now queen d. Nope, that blunders f7.
Oh,
my God.
no, he did it. He did it.
Oh, the commentator's good. She misses it. She
They
missed
both
it.
missed f7.
h5 now.
Queen takes f7 check was right there for the
Oh,
blue.
now it's the opposite thing. Knight queen takes f2 on the other end.
How about queen
Queen
c6?
c6. Queen
Yeah.
c6.
Oh, missed.
No, now it takes and takes e3, and black is winning.
Yep. Black is
AGH,
winning
and it all falls apart.
Yeah, there's so many options. Oh, don't blunder check down
Oh.
g7. Don't blunder that.
That's this is not
gosh.
over, Robert. That queen a4 was a
rook
mistake.
c2.
Immediately blunders a piece.
Rook e1.
Rook e1. Rook e1.
Oh my god.
Oh my goodness.
Oh,
rook
rook
e2.
e2 check.
Oh, what a savage.
Oh my gosh. That
Oh
move
my
order was.
god.
And you have to win this end game.
Yeah,
up
this
2
is just
pawns.
crushing. He's got to make a couple moves fast here. I mean, this is easier than G and H2. It's just very straightforward. You push the pawns, F5.
King h6. Yep. G6.
And he knows what he's doing here.
Oh my
Oh,
gosh.
man.
Whew. That was exhilarating. And actually, this will be the second to last game if this
Yeah.
finishes soon. So for Christoph, that's going to be huge. If he can
That
win
was
this
a
game,
huge- Did Queen F7 win on the spot, or was it just very strong?
I don't know, but it looked winning to me. And if he
Yeah.
can finish this game off and then get one more game, and if he can win that game, it goes from a 4-game match to a 2-game match, right?
Yeah,
and actually, this could have been 5 with Queen takes F7.
Right. Rook H2 was also good. And it's impossible not to win this position. This next game, let me tell you, Robert, this was a huge win. This last game in the 3-minute portion, absolutely pivotal. Pivotal for both of them.
There's one more game. So let's get this
Party
there's
started.
and this is a big opportunity for Christoph because what's going on here?
Yeah,
I think
I don't know.
they're probably checking the chat, seeing all that stuff.
Maybe they're checking maybe they think it's over.
They got one more.
Yeah. No, I think. Yeah, it is one more.
Yeah, they're still. I'll tell them.
Mm-hmm.
Did they start the game yet? Oh, now it's started.
Yep.
Okay. I don't want to write
And
to them.
he
Distract.
changes the opening, G3, B3, this double theme kettle line.
Wow. Okay. Well, I'm still catching my breath, but yeah, he changed his opening, and this is really a big opportunity for him because
It is.
he was probably just about counting himself out, and then you get that win, and you get one more game before Bullet,
Mhm.
and that must feel good.
Yeah, and now he's looking at the scoreboard. He's saying 3. He can make it 2. It's crazy just how things shift. Again, we talked about this at the start. It's all about the trend. He might be looking at this and not even feeling like he's down. He might be seeing the opportunity. And I like what he's doing here in the opening. He's changing it up a little bit. He's playing something very flexible.
Did you say it's all about the Lawrence? Is that what I heard from you?
All about the trend.
Oh, gosh.
I'm sorry. I need to fumigate my entire residence here.
Yeah, I mean, I heard all about the
Including
trend,
myself.
but I don't think you did it on purpose. But maybe you
I
said
actually
trend.
didn't.
I think you said trend, and I'm just hearing puns now. Like, that's what you've done to me.
That is what I've done. See, I've
It's like,
scarred you for life.
I'm seeing ghosts. I'm like looking behind me, making sure there's no pun there. And well, this position, we have this. Jesse Crichton loves this structure. He called it the Hilby because at the
Hilby.
U.S. Junior Championship, Craig Hilby played this like several times with it's like phalanx from C4, D3, E3, F4.
Yeah, it is a very, very interesting structure. It's something similar sometimes happens in like the closed Sicilian.
I know all about that.
Uh-huh.
Because I played the closest Sicilian, right? So
Right. Okay. Oh, you played it even against me in Philadelphia one time.
okay, I don't remember every game we've ever played, but I'm glad you do.
I think it was the World Open 2000.
Don't age us. Don't age me in particular.
In 1980, 1976. I remember watching. Yeah, I mean, it was Gerald Ford on TV at the time, man. Good old days, Robert.
Oh, man. Well, how about this position here? Because these kind of close to Sicilian-like structures, I think a lot of people struggle with them because there's no tension just yet. You have the opportunity to play for an E4 move or things like that. But what do you make of this position, Daniel?
I like the way Alina's handling in G5. You have to chip away at the edges of white structure. And the thing is, it's very much sort of a game where the tension occurs under the surface. It looks like, white center is solid and so is black's, but it's going to be a game of who flinches first. I like what Alina is doing here. I like G5. At the same time, Christoph's got very healthy piece coordination. So maybe B4 or something, just keep on chipping away both sides at opposite edges of the board. I don't know.
And it's a tough call whether or not you take on G5 as well.
I think you do.
Yeah, and there we see Christoph do. You don't
G5 94, by the way, yeah. She's got to take with the queen. Because HG, there's queen H5 in 94.
Exactly what I was about to say. You took the words, they took the tactics right out of my mouth.
Right out of your mouth, didn't I?
And that's the big problem is that, you want to take, not with the queen to give yourself an ice at F pawn, but you have to because of this 94 threat. So queen takes G5. I think Alina now realizes, 94. She's composing herself. Queen takes G5.
Well, maybe she's calculated immediately.
Well, if queen H5 check, there was king G7, 94. Oh, wait, the D6 pawn's also.
D6 is hanging, yeah. No, but 94 immediately is probably knight D6. I think, honestly, I think she's forgot the pawn's hanging. Is Christoph, he sees it. Knight B7 is very strong because C5 also falls.
Just take everything is what you're saying.
And that's the thing. Once the center opens, but okay, T4.
He took your advice. Opening everything.
Yeah.
But knight takes B7 was crushing. I mean, just absolutely winning on the spot.
Right. But I mean, he wants CD, ED, knight T4, queen slides over to C3. And the side that's better prepared for the opening of the center, it's just things collapse like a house of cards here.
Yep. The reason why knight takes B7, was so good was that the queen always has H3 check to get out of the way if needed. So that move was very nice. D4 still looks good to me. You could probably just take on F4 right now, but there's played, but rook takes F4 and or not. Didn't rook takes F4 just look good? Getting active?
Yeah, I'm having a hard time understanding. I don't understand what's going on here either. Queen E4. Now the queens can be traded. So if black just takes, no, that's not good.
Queen E5 check.
Right. Rook G7.
And I was just going to go bishop E4, rook G1, and do all that stuff to you in the G file.
Yeah, I agree. I think queen E5 is very strong. It's played.
Yeah, the queen trade favors white because black has some counter chances with the queens on the board, but now bishop E4.
Very important move.
Your bishop's under attack, get it out of the way, give the G file to yourself, and there's a pinned rook here on G7. If queen F6, you trade queen to knight E8.
Oh, beautiful.
Hey, man, you're not the only one who sees tactics quickly. I can't let you do this alone, partner.
Well, I know you're always there for me, Robert, so
I try my best.
Grateful.
Here's G1.
And he stepped up his game. I mean, the last two games he has stepped up his game. Maybe F3 by Alina to...
But rook G6 after F3.
Or even rook G7 and then queen H5, rook G1. Yeah. Wow, what does black even do? Just paralysis here.
It looks no fun. F3 is probably the move you have to play just to do something.
Speaking. Rook G6 is a humongous threat.
Yeah.
But black, it's crazy. Look at the coordination by what all the squares are defended. That opening of the G file, which was double-edged at the start, now favors squarely white.
Yeah, the white pieces are just superbly located. F3. So
good job by Alina. She's using her chances.
And look at Christoph. He was so ready for that. And rook G1.
Yeah, he's just making sure there's no queen G1.
F2, queen H7 checkmate. Queen H7 mate. Queen H7. Oh,
Or a mate
okay,
like this.
it's mate anyway. But those are those moments where you miss a checkmate and the game continues, and that pawn f2 like is so threatening that it becomes a scary position. But we got to give credit where credit is due. Krzysztof Sielecki finishes that 3-minute portion with 2 consecutive wins down to the wire. He now trails IM Kashlinskaya by 2 points as we head to the bullet. Everybody, this is honestly our best match thus far in the IM GM Speeches Championship. You will not want to miss the finish. So we will be right back after a short break, and then we get to the bullet. And we are back getting ready for the bullet portion of this IM, not a GM Speeches Championship opening round. As you see on the right-hand side of your screen, IM Kashlinskaya is the 3 seed taking on Sielecki down there with number 14. But it has been a huge battle between these two. It's kind of a toss-up heading into the bullet. Of course, Alina has to be favored with the 2-point lead thus far. But Danya, does anything go in bullet?
Anything goes in bullet, and both of these players, to an extent, especially Alina, are wild cards when it comes to bullet. We don't know much about how good they're going to be. I think Alina hasn't played a lot of bullet, or virtually any bullet, on Chess.com. So the thing about bullet is, it's, again, every game, anything can happen. It's all about the speed. And this is, of course, as you pointed out, Robert, the closest match we've had by far. I think this is going to be a fascinating bullet section. I hope nobody's even thinking about leaving their computer or phone.
Yeah, how could you go anywhere, especially because tomorrow there is a day off from these matches because of the Title Tuesday, and then we get back to the matches on Wednesday. And honestly, Danya, I think we deserve a day off considering how intense this match has been.
We do.
And the quality of play has been really, really high. I think
incredibly high, yeah.
We must commend both players. First, credit to Christoph, got a great start. He was up 2 points. Alina fought back, even went up 4 points herself. It's a 6-point swing. And then Christoph, his back was against the wall. He had a tough position. He won that penultimate game in the 3-minute portion, then won the final game, and now faces just a 2-point deficit into the bullet, which will start right now.
And we'll start any second. Clutch ending there by Christoph. But Alina, she can't forget, she's up 2 points. That's a hefty lead. They can't exchange baskets here, to use another basketball reference. Christoph has to make his move fast. And there they go.
Okay, we're into the bullet right now, and we see that both players playing very quickly. We've seen this opening many times, queen b3, queen b6, c5, just trying to get the better position for the pieces. And after bishop f4, queen goes back to c8. We have seen this before. Knight d2. The bishop on f5 has been captured in several moments, Danya. What do you think about this decision to open up the center and not go for these knight h4 lines?
Interesting. Well, I think he's using that knight, and he wants to put it on d6 and deprive black of castling rights. That's interesting. I feel like he's definitely prepared this before the match. And I like this a lot. This is a very practical in bullet. It's all about king safety in initiative. Initiative is so much more important than objective evaluation. This bishop on d6 guarantees white a long-lasting initiative because black simply cannot castle. That is a big problem. Castling long still renders the king super unsafe. We'll see how Alina handles this.
And Christoph turned the lights back on in his room, so you could tell. He's like, a d5, break it all open. But
this is very nasty, but I like what Alina is actually doing. She's really trying to castle. Oh, confident. Now knight b5 or knight d5.
Yeah, here comes the knight.
Look at that. That is devastating.
Yeah, and you can't castle queenside. You're also getting mated over there, it feels like. Oh, she does castle queenside. The knight is under attack. Knight b6 check followed by queen a3, queen a8 looks pretty tough.
Yeah, that looks very interesting. But even knight e3 playing it slow. Although I guess maybe knight d4 there. He's got to watch the time.
Yeah, but I like knight e3. Knight d4, queen a3. Just go after it for the checkmate. That's what you have to go for. Knight c4.
A4 just doesn't have the ring of it. Also blocks the a file.
Queen c6 coming with knight f3. Okay, can't go there yet. e5. You need some space for your pieces.
e5, yeah. e5 is a must, although knight d5 there has to be reckoned with.
Oh, because the knight coming to e7 would check. Nice.
Yeah.
The time is not on white side, but the position definitely. Oh, take that pony, b4, b5. Push all your pawns over there. Queen c6
Queen
immediately.
C6. Now takes on rook e7 and f3 also.
Oh, I like your f3 idea.
Yeah,
F3
I just
right
don't
now.
like the way Christoph is handling. I mean, he has to be a little bit more uncompromising, although here specifically, I feel like he might just be much more. I mean, f4, it's far from over.
Very good move by Alina f4 to free that bishop. And now we're in pure opposite color bishop territory. Bishop b3 at some moment to force a5. Just make sure that all those pawns are in dark squares and you can control. There it is. Bishop b3, controlling the light squares. And for white, you got to go king f4, king g5, king f6 in the near future. Maybe sack in exchange.
Exactly. Sack that pawn.
There it is. Oh, nice.
And g4 as well to add some spice.
The rook is stuck. That rook is absolutely parried. Go king a7, rook b7. You have to do something like that.
But
No,
now f5.
Yep.
And now that pawn on h5 becomes weak.
King a7. You need to make that move. I think it's a must.
That's a mouse slip.
Yeah, that must be a mouse slip. because you just give up the pawn there.
Yeah, or I mean, she's trying to set up some sort of. Okay, that's bold, but it's winning because that pawn is just too far advanced. I think.
Yeah, bishop f6.
Bishop d6. Oh, and the king is locked. Look at this. The king is locked out. It's in a maximum security prison. This game is over.
It's a win for Christoph. And
h6, king g7.
I think both of them have shown good fight in this bullet game. I didn't know what to expect, but both players, I think, proved just in this first game that this is now really becoming a toss-up. Christoph has won 3 straight games if he can take this one home, which he is by getting a queen and still 14 seconds, that he has cut the deficit to 1 point, 3 straight victories for him. And if you're Alina, I mean, you got to right the ship somewhere. And I think that time is now.
Yeah, I mean, 1 point. If Christoph manages to tie it, I mean, that's going to be a tie on paper, but all the momentum is going to be on his side. Even a draw, even just stop the bleeding for 1 game is going to be huge for Alina. And she plays a Trompowski. I like how they're changing up the openings. Very, very sharp stuff. This is going to be a fascinating finale. And
for black, this queen can come to h4 check at some moment if you're not careful. The queen also has access to the a5 square. But a4, I like how she dealt with this, trying to make black give up some squares. In this case, these light squares over there on the queen side. The knight on e6 is so awkward, and e5 would push that knight back at the right time. But you don't want to play with like e5 too soon, because then it puts the pawn in a vulnerable spot where black can start trying to break in the center. I would honestly have taken on e6 and forced d takes e6, but
yeah, that seemed a little safer. Sometimes there's this appearance that white's center is super stable, but as we can see, even bishop takes d5 and queen g5. I mean, I like black's position c4. Again, I feel like he's gaining the upper hand here.
Yeah, c4 is one of those moves that you don't really want to play, but if it works tactically, then you're happy with it. And queen takes b2, just steal that pawn. f4 is a good response here. You need something.
But knight g6.
Can I go bishop c4? She does
knight f4 even.
Then bishop b3, and that queen on b2 is a little awkward. Maybe we'll go back to e5.
True.
But this, I think, makes sense. Rook c8, go after the c2 pawn.
Very solid. And we can see Christoph, there's nothing wrong with what he's doing. He's going for the solid choices. He's got to be a little bit careful. Sometimes you have to be a little more uncompromising, but he's definitely still better here.
Great move by Alina, though, right, with queen d3, just to protect everything.
Bringing everything in. I like what she's doing. I'm not sure. I think
watch out for f5. Watch out for f5 and then f6.
Knight e5, queen f4, f6. Nice.
Wait, didn't queen f4 black would have been f6? Okay,
you're right, exactly.
Take on d7 now. That's a past d pawn.
Who knows who's better here? Now I think might be white.
Do you take on a4? Yes, you do. Then you go queen f4 and take on f6, and you're at least up a pawn in an endgame.
Yep, you gotta. Wow.
Just take on f6. Play this one out forever.
No,
that
was not a very good choice.
h3.
Nice. Rook e8. Rook e8, intending rook e1, queen e5 check.
No, but rook f3, rook t3.
Again.
We've had this before, Danya.
Exactly the same thing.
Rook f3 is lights out now. King h2, and then rook g3 after queen d6. Same exact thing.
Still king f8, somewhat white is
queen take on h7. Go queen h8, take on h7.
Exactly, and that rook is perfectly guarding the king. Yep.
Also, Alina has played so quickly. She still has 37 seconds.
Yeah, she's played a fantastic game so far.
Just trade these queens now. You're up a second pawn. Queen h. How do I trade the queens? That's all I want to do. Okay, that's a good move.
There's no rush though. I mean, you can even push the h. Queen e8. Queen e8 was a queen trade.
Queen e8 was queen b4.
Rook b6. Rook d6 though.
Now you trade queens and you win the end game. Rook d3 check if king takes, and now rook d3 check, c3. Just start pushing. Pre-move. Honestly, though, now I'm starting to get into that mindset because there are 18 minutes left. When you're losing a game or like very clearly lost in your opponent's time, you should probably just resign immediately.
Yeah, because you have to conserve every second.
That game was up for grabs, so that's not a good example of it. But I'm just getting into that mindset of gamesmanship and thinking, hey, like if Alina is losing a game, she should play it out until checkmate.
Of course, definitely.
If Christoph is losing, just resign and go to the next 96.
But White's just much better. He's been much better out of every opening. This game, he's got to take more risks though. He's got to play more in compromising fashion. I like what he's doing here. Again, we see the bishop on d6, just like in the first game of the bullet section.
Yes, we do. And look at this bishop on d6. Maybe it will be replaced by knight c4, knight d6. And okay, I love what he's doing here. The annoying thing about this is you're better, but winning games like this is actually quite hard.
Yeah, because you got to find the moment to actually make the decisive push.
Exactly. And black is very passive, but is very solid. There's no clear weakness just yet. The bishop on b7 is terrible. Watch out if it comes to a6, then regroups into the position. Bishop a6 now, for instance. What c takes b6, you'll give up a pawn. Take my pawn on c6. I get some activity at the very least. But c takes b6 probably is the best choice.
I'm not convinced that this endgame is so easy to win. Again, Christoph he's trying to win this without any risk, and I'm just not sure about that strategy. Again, Alina's starting to activate some of her pieces. I really like what she's doing here.
But there, she should win bishop b5 instead of bishop g4. Just to
That's
protect
true.
the
Now
pawn.
white grabs the pawn, I suppose, and it's just.
But play rook a8. Still some opportunity here. Ooh, the bishop is stuck.
That's a nasty little move, but bishop h5 is accurate, not giving up the knight on d5. Maybe rook d3. Okay, b5 is a nice move as well.
He's gonna take on d5 and then just say I'm up 2 pawns, even though there's opposite colored bishops. Favors white for sure.
King f2, a great move, just tightening all the screws first, and now he's just going to take. And rook b6, rook b8, for example, trading rooks, those connected passers are going to outweigh. Okay, bishop b4 is pretty clinical as well.
Rook takes the best practical try.
G4 though.
Yep, ends it. Rook takes pawn, rook takes b6. You can even take on g6 if you're feeling unsafe because bishop e4 is a threat.
Yep. Rook d4.
Yeah, rook d4 feels the safest.
Rook's, yeah. King f4 is good enough as well, although check and rook a3. If king d4, that loses a rook. Okay.
Yeah. King d4 is one of those moves where you put your king on the square, the rook comes from behind, rook d3 check wins your rook. That would be terrible.
Right. He wants to cover rook a2 check with rook d2. Very much a sensible idea.
I think she's wasting time.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, time is a huge part of this match. And as we discussed early on, you just got to do what you got to do in these situations.
And here comes f5, rook h8 checkmate.
Yep. He's going straight for the
bishop,
jugular.
Bishop f3 check. Bishop f3 and take g4. Wait, just take that pawn.
Oh, wow, yeah, and then f5 was covered.
Yeah, I actually think black was going to be doing okay in those lines because
now rook d6,
falls.
rook takes b6.
Yeah, that was a missed chance there. And actually, it seems like bishop f3 check is still an option for black. And Christoph now is thinking he's getting low.
He's got f5, e6. Yeah, okay, that wins.
E6.
He's got to be careful though. King f6. Oh, she's going e7, rook d2.
Wait, yeah, rook d2 is nice. I was about to say, is there some perpetual opportunities? But no, rook c1 also works.
He's going for the most sort of, yeah, but this wins. Of course, there's too much airspace for the king, and this is over.
And Alina's
doing the right thing.
Okay, she finally gives up, but
yeah,
wasting the time. All right, so it's a 1-point match.
1 point game, the ball in the hands of Stephen Curry.
Which one of these two is Steph Curry in this example?
It's a good question. I think Alina's more Steph Curry.
I think Alina's more Swin Cash, if you know what I'm saying.
Oh, Swin Cash, yeah.
Because Kashlinskaya, come on, man. You got to...
Oh, very good, yeah. Very, very good.
Swin Kashlinskaya up in here. What's going on in this one? So black plays e4, gaining space. I like it. I'm not saying black is better. I think white is still doing very well because rook c1. Don't take on d5. Don't end that tension just yet.
Yep. No, white is much better. Bishop d1, bishop b3, another maneuver to be considered. Knight b6. This is
c6.
White's holding all of the punches here.
Yep, I like it. Rook b7.
Yeah, this is perfectly good as well. Exactly. Christoph doing what he has to. He has to organize immediate counterplay. h4, h3, g5. He has to go for it.
The problem is normally you have a dark square bishop for black, and that's where your counterplay comes from. Without those dark square bishops, you just have nothing.
Yeah, but you've still got to go g5. I think you have to go g5 here.
You have to. What else can you do?
And he does.
Nice move.
h4, bishop g4. What a classy move there. And now
Close it
h4.
down. Close everything there. G3 is a thing you kind of have to do, I feel like.
Yes.
Because white will slowly win this game. G3, queen a4. Just keep pressing on the queen side.
Yeah, now the problem is, this game will take a lot of time. And you basically know, black is in huge trouble.
So queen c8, bishop a6. What else can you do here? Maybe there's knight b8 actually in that line. Like queen c8, bishop a6, knight b8. It looks terrible still. Like rook
f7, for example.
Rook c7 now.
That pawn on c6 just kills black here.
There it is.
c8. Just come back and take a7. The great thing about being white here is she's not in any hurry. Just take all pawns.
Rook A8. Oh man, I think that was the wrong.
That was
way to
rook
capture
A3.
this.
Yeah, that was a chance.
Okay, but black, if black can get that queen activated, there's still some semblance of hope. But the bishop covers everything. There's no way for the knights to get in. Yeah, this looks.
Well, he's doing what he has to, right? Queen A5. I love King G2.
Wait,
but no, I don't. That's a blunder. Sorry.
Yeah, I was about to say, I don't think you love that move too much because now the knight and bishop are sort of trapped down there. Wait, Queen A2 and then Queen D2. The knight's trapped.
Oh,
okay,
man, King F1 is forced. Yep. Queen A4.
But how does white try to win this game? Just King G6.
Right.
Knight G7 to F5. Black is the one who can coordinate better.
But he's got Knight G7, Queen G5. He's got to be very careful. Oh my God, the blunders the queen.
Wait, what just happened?
He blundered A4.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my goodness. He's got to resign here.
Yeah, resign. Just resign and play the next game. He forgot his queen was hanging.
Yeah.
How? Oh, it's so sad. He was playing so well there. I'm going to bring that up really quickly.
Recovered from just a horrendous position.
Just hung the queen. Forgot it was hanging on A4. Now back to the live game because we can't show this anymore. But
so what? 11 minutes left. Am I reading this right?
Oh my gosh! Yeah, just under 11 minutes.
Basically, this is must-win territory.
Oop, a blunder by Alina. Knight G4, just knight back to C4. So the knight.
Yeah, or knight D3. That's that trap exists. Yeah.
Yeah, that didn't work out well.
So basically, must-win territory for Christoph. He's got to win 2 in a row.
The wrong move order by Alina, taking back on E5 to play knight G4 first. That's the essential point here. And now white's just up a pawn. So Christoph has to knight D3, good move. You want to trade the pieces, get more squares for yours. Knight E4 is coming for white. And knight takes C5, then playing C4, then queen
C3.
C3.
Knight E4, yeah, and H3. I mean, H3, knight F6, queen G5, another possibility.
Mm-hmm. Queen G5, bam. Here it comes. There it is. Pinning the knight.
And now no hurry. Rook A D1. Although, see, the thing is H6 allows black to draw this game out.
Yeah.
Knight D. Okay, takes.
So you're right. This is going to last a while, but F4, it's better for white, obviously, up a pawn. But how do you win this game? It takes a long, long time. So King E3. But this is the point where, E5 check. Wait, wasn't E5 with the B7 pawn hanging?
Yeah, it was. That was the second pawn. And see, the thing is, again, the time is such an important factor. If this game takes enough, well, I guess he's got to win this endgame, first of all.
Right.
If he doesn't, and the problem is the pawn on B3 is weak. And there's no equivalent weakness on the other side because black has pawns on dark squares. Maybe bishop D5.
Bishop B5 looks good, but then bishop C2, you might have to.
B2 and rook B1, I thought, but yeah.
How about bishop E4? Give up the H pawn and get rook H1 at the end to take on H7.
Yeah.
There it is. It took a long time for him to play it, but he just needs to win. I don't mind him spending so much time. Oh, bishop takes F1. Nah, probably doesn't work.
Rook D6, yeah.
So rook H1. And the problem is bishop G4 to D1 hits B3, but G6 is hanging because the F7 pawn is placed.
It's too fast. Bishop D5 and bishop G6, both huge threats.
Bishop D5. Bishop D5. It's it. That's game.
Yep.
And if Alina, you play this out. Okay,
yes.
Well, actually, there's not really much to play out at this point. You're down really the whole world.
Yeah, rook F6, I mean, for example. Or this. Well, now king C5. Okay, it doesn't matter.
E6, E7.
Let's just go E6 stuff. He has to eat all of it.
Oh, she resigned. I'm surprised by that.
Yeah.
She had 31 seconds to kill there. But actually, you know what? She's only at 1 point. So it is kind of weird, right? This happens in basketball too. You've made plenty of references. Like sometimes you want to go all the way down to the very last second. Other times you want to leave some time on the clock. So yeah, I don't know.
Your opponent.
I think it's too early considering there are 7 minutes, 45 seconds left at this point.
But bishop F2, Alina's got to be careful because bishop takes F2 check. She's Queen D2.
Queen H4 or Queen D2.
Yeah. But this, I would say, essentially is a must win, right? Because if Christoph loses, the match is...
It's a must not lose.
Must not lose, yeah.
Bishop H4, I would play. Okay, Bishop E3 is awkward, but she's trying to take over the dark squares. Knight to B5, Rook D1, get the D6.
It's solid.
Yeah. I don't like the queen on E3. Obviously, Rook G1, G4, G5, honestly, is interesting, but maybe not for...
But queen takes C4. I mean, black's just crushing here.
Oh my gosh, that was just an oversight. She just hung a pawn there.
Yeah, and I mean, it's obviously just a pawn, and the king is not in too much danger. I like queen d2 by Alina, getting her pieces out.
Yeah.
e4, okay. Well played, so she's recovering.
Yep. And there is the possibility of an attack. G4, G5, rook G1 kind of stuff. F4 is a good move. E5.
And so is d5.
Yep. Play like it's a French. Bishop takes E4. Just take that thing. Queen D4. Trade queens. You actually might.
This is good. Now e3, rook e3.
Yep. You would love to give up the G2 pawn. I know you're going for some tactics there, but that would, okay. Now it's even material.
Yeah, I think black, white's position is a little airy, so to say, but that is an incredible recovery by Alina, given the blunder.
I agree. And Danya, you're right that white's position is airy with the queens on the board. As soon as you trade queens, white is better because it's easier to attack the base pawns, this particular pawn a6. Rook d8 here. Just check on d8.
And I love h4, h5. She's cementing. Okay, this is
rook d8.
Rook d8. White's better, and then takes rook d6.
Oh yeah,
this is big trouble for black. Okay,
rook
but
d7
now
also good.
Yeah, king g8 is forced.
Yep, there's rook d6. I don't know if that was the precise move order. G3.
Yep, and now I think this is very, very bad for black. Rook takes a6.
And at b3, there's rook b6. Knight, you just take. Oh, this is beautiful. You're up a protected pawn, and it's on the queen side. So just take on g6. You don't have to. Rook c3 first. But what you don't want to allow is gh5, h4. Oh, no, she allowed it. I was just
but still,
h4.
It's very slow.
h4,
he's got to play it. No, that's way too slow by Christoph.
Yeah,
way
too
necessary. Slow.
Here comes the king. Rook back to b4.
Rook back to b4, yeah, to do, yeah.
Oh, here comes king c3, rook b3. No, this is really bad now. He had h4.
Rook e1.
Okay, there's actually still chances here. Like king g7, king g6. It comes up very quickly here.
I'm not sure she's going the right way. Now rook b1, king g7, exactly as you said.
Rook b1. Here it comes. King g7, king g6.
Maybe h5 too.
H5, yeah, I guess
black,
now.
Yeah, because now white plays it. Okay, I see what Christoph's trying to do.
There's no way to get your king in though, so just you can leave the pawns there.
This is looking more and more like a draw. How much time is there left? 4 minutes 55. If he draws it, there will be enough time, but he has to be careful.
Oh, I like this though. King c2, king c2
e7
coming.
Though e5.
Rook c6, check at some point. King c2 first.
Rook, he's got to try rotation. Now b5 maybe, b5 and b6.
Take on e5. Here we go.
Now take on h3 too.
e6, and then b5, b6.
King f6 stops the pawn.
Oh,
c3.
that's really nice.
Now rook h1 maybe. He's got to go fast with the h pawn as fast as possible.
No, take the rook. Couldn't you just trade rooks there?
Yeah, and king e6. Maybe he's playing for a win already. Who knows?
I don't think so.
Yeah. No, of course not. Rook b1. Okay, this is a draw. Or is it b6, rook b3? Just stop everything. Rook b5. He's got to just take it. Start the next game.
Wow, what a crazy topsy-turvy game there.
He just declined a draw. I'm not sure. There we go.
It was obviously unintentional. He was just making a move.
I'm playing for a win.
Woo! I am feeling like Nature Boy Ric Flair. I gotta get a woo!
Ric Flair. Yeah, exactly.
Oh man, sorry if I just hurt the ears of all our viewers, but I'm feeling good right now. Knight a6 coming after the c5 pawn. Here we see the knight comes to c3. Now this is what we saw in the first game of the entire match. Just making sure you're clamping down on black's opportunities. I like what Alina's done here compared to that first game because she's gotten some activity, but bishop d4 saying, everything's over with. Now your knight has to move back. White has more space. White is better developed. The rook on d1, queen on d4, allows c5 to be pushed through. There it is. The bishop on g2 is
c5 opening the d-file. It's a positional crunch here.
Queen.
Trouble.
You can't go queen b6 or queen c8 because queen takes e7.
Maybe you still do and go rook f8 though. Maybe you just say, you know what, I'm going to jettison a pawn. That's what she does.
Oh, I don't know. Okay.
I don't know about taking knight e5. That's a very Christoph decision.
So bishop c8. Just do it. Now, I know it looks bad.
Then maybe a3 and rook c1. Just.
Yeah, you're right. This is a better decision. Bishop b5.
But Christoph, he's trying to keep everything protected. I think he should, bishop b7. There's maybe bishop b2.
Knight d7. Play knight d7. Oh,
b4. He wants to go b4. He wants to shove those pawns right down black's grill.
But bishop e2, there's then rook d8, rook d8, bishop
b7, and a5. And that pawn is just running down the board. Now bishop e2, rook d2.
But I like what she's done because the a4 pawn is under attack. So bishop g4 out of necessity. Yep.
Yes.
Okay. Wow. Clever defense by Alina here.
Very resilient. Maybe just rook a2. Maybe just
bishop e6, then bishop e6, bishop d5. Wow, that is amazing.
Incredible. He takes it, he's seen something. Rook d4 and b5 maybe.
Or take on b7, b5, bishop c6, then go after the b pawn, right? Something like that should also be good. But I like what you're saying. Rook d4, knight e5, b5, then rook a7. You get passive defense. The a4 pawn is so weak. Oh, I don't like that.
These are the deciding moments, guys. These are the deciding
moments. b5, rook a5.
That's beautiful. But knight e5, the rook is hanging.
Okay, and then
Bishop
now you can
D5.
take on a5. Bishop d5, I can go e6.
Oh, and then I take on b6, and it's unclear.
Yeah, then it becomes unclear again. Oh my gosh, no, that the bishop d5 e6 actually that saves black.
Rook d2.
Okay, just take on a5.
Oh, and that's a draw. Oh no, what is?
There's a minute and a half left though.
Maybe he should offer one.
Yes, he should, but Alina should not accept.
Alina should not accept it.
Also, as you know full well, knights in bullet games are way trickier than bishops. So if anyone's going to blunder, it's likely going to be white.
She's declined a draw, and she's doing exactly the right thing.
Yep.
She
can play this one out. She can play this one out. If this game goes on another, 50 moves, he's going to not have enough time in the match.
How much time is left?
A minute and 5 seconds or so at this point.
Wow.
Okay, so he needs to draw this quickly somehow.
Which is not going to happen. She can make 50 moves.
Oh my gosh, and she's going to go knight f7, knight e5.
Yep. She's just got to not blunder.
Just keep going.
Don't even take that bishop. That's right.
Oh my gosh. And we're not rooting for either player. It's been a wonderful match.
Incredible.
And it's come down to the wire. So let's see. Can he force a draw? So the time is ticking. We have like 40 seconds left. And this game, he needs to play very quickly. Just keep pre-moving. Okay. She's pre-moving back, though, and making different moves, which is so important.
Yes. Now she takes, and that's correct. 30 seconds left.
Oh my gosh. Can you do this in time?
She offers a draw.
Oh no, why?
No.
Don't do that. Don't do that.
No.
Okay,
that's so classy, but man, oh man, I mean.
No. Oh my gosh, this is the final game. Unless
my gosh.
Unless Christoph wins, and I love that he played the Banco.
He has to go all in. There's nothing to lose. But Robert, I guess this is good. Knight b5 though.
H4. She's playing for a win.
Knight b5 too. Knight b5, queen a6, knight c7 is interesting.
No, but there's a knight on e8, right?
Oh, what am I saying?
No. But you're right. The bishop attacks.
The bishop, another discovery, and that's what she does. Now queen a7 though.
Queen a7, and
that was a bad move. Yeah.
Is there g4 coming? Like, what's happening on the king side?
But now Black can play d6. White's got to be careful not to overextend herself.
Just take on a6 and play queen e2. Just do that. I feel like that's the way. There it is. But Christoph, the good thing for Christoph is now there's no more pressure of like getting one last game. This is the final game.
Yep.
So he needs to win this. He knows exactly what he needs. He can. Oh, queen e3.
I can't believe it. I mean, with 20 seconds left.
Ooh. So king h7, but then the queen moves back.
Both of them. Yeah, king h7. You can't give that g pawn.
Yeah, that's a bad one to give because then knight g5 and other stuff. But queen f4. Now there's no threat. Knight g5, the king goes back to g8. So that's the good news for Christoph here. But his knight on b8 stuck. I would play a move like queen d3 or queen b6 makes sense. Just knight a6. Just go.
Yeah, knight a6, knight b4. That's exactly what he does. Or knight c7. That pawn on d5 is very weak.
Super weak. Here comes knight f7. And what white really needs is rook h3, rook g3 in one turn. So here's rook h3, knight d5, we'll trade on d5, go queen g5. Uh-oh.
Exactly.
Wait a sec. Here comes queen g5, rook g3.
Maybe rook f7 is... but the knight's taken still rook g3. Can't take that pawn.
So queen g5. There it is. How can Christoph defend it?
Rook 8, no.
Rook a4 was interesting to go rook g4 with knight h6 check, right? Queen g6, rook g4, knight h6 check. Wow, he just takes that. Now it's going to be at least a draw.
You're going to take on f7 though, and then queen takes h5. That's a guaranteed draw. She has a draw in this position.
She has a draw. Knight h6. Just do it. Just do it. Oh, what's she playing for a win?
Oh, queen b1, king e2. Maybe there's nothing more than a perpetual here.
Queen e4. Okay, maybe he should have started with some kind of rook move, but then there's knight h6, knight f7. Oh my gosh.
Oh my goodness.
So queen b5, just king back. It looks like
but he's got to go queen b2, but that doesn't help.
Queen b2, knight h6 check, right? Oh
queen
my
d4.
god.
He's got to go something. Queen d4. Queen c4.
Okay, king g1. Now white's winning. Yeah, white's winning now. Just bishop h6.
That was a bad move.
Yeah, I mean, he had to. A draw is the same as a loss. He went for it.
He had
Props to him. And,
wow.
Kudos to Elena Kashlinskaya because...
Incredible. Queen g7's mate.
Yeah, queen g7. Just take on g7 twice and check and mate.
It is mate.
Oh my gosh.
Speechless.
We were going absolutely crazy.
Absolutely crazy.
Elena Kashlinskaya is the deserved winner in a very tight match between two great players. We're going to take a very short break because when we return, we will have final interviews with these players to hear their thoughts of what was an epic match in the IM non-GM Speed Chess Championship. Alina and Christoph, I just want to thank you both because Danya and I were on the edge of our seats. So was everybody watching, the many thousands of viewers. So thank you so much for that epic match. And my first question has to be to you, Alina, because you offered a draw in that second to last game. And it seemed like you could have just wound the clock all the way down to a match victory. Were you aware of how few seconds were remaining in the overall time?
Yeah, I saw the time was 24 minutes and we're supposed to stop at 25 minutes. But and first I actually declined the draw because I wanted just to play some more moves because I thought that I will win because of time will come to end. But then I don't know, I somehow felt that that's not fair to move pieces from one side to another just to win on time or something. I mean, of course, this might sound a little bit silly because, okay, maybe I just should play more some seconds and then the match would be over. But then we wouldn't have the next game. So.
Well, Christoph, let me ask you on your end. At one point, you were down 4 points in the match. You won the penultimate game of the 3-minute portion, which was a really back and forth battle, and played a great final game of that 3-minute portion. What was it like for you heading into the bullet? Did you feel like you had good chances and with the momentum there?
Yeah, I thought it was probably open again after the 2 wins. When I was 4 down, I thought, okay, I'm too old for this shit, you know? And somehow I got the 2 wins. And the first one was super lucky. I think the second win was good, but there was one very lucky one. The penultimate was pure luck. And I think the games were so tense. First of all, congratulations. I think, Andina, you played a great match. It was a great fight. I wasn't totally aware of that situation at the end because I was just like completely focused at playing, and I only looked at the overall match clock when the final game started. So I wasn't aware of this situation with the draw. So,
well, Alina, congratulations to you. Like Robert said, epic match. A quick question about time management. Both Robert and I were very impressed throughout the match. Well, both of the quality of play, but also with your time management. You seem to have enough time in every segment to make critical decisions. did you kind of think through your time management strategy before the match, or was it a question of confidence? Once you started winning, you felt more confident to make decisions fast?
Is that question to me? Because I don't think that I was the one who was managing with time very well.
You managed your time very well in the 3-minute portion. You were moving a little slowly, and maybe we thought that you gained confidence when you started winning some games, because at first Christoph went out to a 2.5 lead, but in the 3-minute portion, you were moving very quickly.
Yeah, well, in the 5-minute games, I actually felt that Christoph was playing just better. So I could feel that my chances would come when the time control would get less. So in the 3 minutes and 1 minute, I thought I would have more chances, because in 5 minutes, I thought that you were just outplaying me. And well, then I also understood that my probably only and the best chance was to play faster. So the main idea was that when the game started, I started to think, and then I understood, oh, I should play faster. And then I just started to feel to play faster.
Yeah, that makes sense. And Christoph, let me ask you, your openings were extremely like boa constrictor-like. It felt like you weren't really giving Alina too many chances to play tactically. Was that part of your preparation going into the match? Just play solid chess and play quickly?
Yeah, I guess it was. I mean, I saw that she's very well prepared. I mean, I kind of expected the openings to happen that way in the match. She was playing those lines with d4, for example. And I have some options against that, and some are sharper and some are like a little bit more stodgy. And I went for the stodgy one, which kind of, I think my positions were okay. They were not exciting, but they were solid. But I think it went back and forth. So some went okay, and in some she also outplayed me. So it was many games I have actually no clue about what happened there, because I felt it was so close. Yeah. Maybe I was better in some, and then it went back and forth, and it's very tough.
You did give us.
I'm glad that it was a good quality match, because when you're in the match, did you ever play one? Probably yes. Yeah. I mean, when you're in that, you're so focused and you think, oh my God, what's going on here? And it's very tough to evaluate what's going on.
For sure. And Christoph, you did give us a highlight moment with that queen takes h4 sacrifice. You know, you went knight h3 check, queen takes h4. That was a very beautiful mating mechanism. Nice. And we were looking at it like, hey, Christoph, you're playing these aggressive lines pretty well too. So it was fun to see you, mix and match your openings. And Alina, back to you. It did seem like you were sticking to your weapons quite clearly, but were you frustrated at a certain point? Because to Danya and I, it looked like you were getting slightly better positions with white for the 2 bishops, but Christoph was such a stubborn defender that it was hard to actually push your advantage into something concrete.
Well, of course, I was frustrated at some point, especially that I think that mostly with black, I was getting almost lost positions after like first 15 moves or something. And whatever I change, I still got the worst position. And with white, okay, I was trying different systems, but I was not happy with my opening today. So I would definitely have to work on it. And it was a little bit... It was hard for me when Christoph was repeating the same opening, and that was me who had to find something new, because I knew that in the previous games I didn't achieve what I wanted to.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, Christoph, back to you with a question. You these days are a teacher. You make many instructive videos. I actually watched your video on the Nimza Rogozin. So I was in preparation for this match. I watched your video. So it's different playing and teaching, but the floor is yours. I mean, as a teacher, what is your method, and kind of what do you try to get across as a professional?
Oh, that's a very sophisticated question. I mean, currently I'm not so much teaching chess in terms of having students. I'm mostly writing and doing courses with video. I feel it's very important to have a good balance for a wide audience. So there are those real opening geeks. Yeah, you want to probably have really detailed information, but there are many people around who want access to interesting information that they actually understand, and that it's not too complicated. This is also why I wrote those books that are called Keep It Simple, trying to kind of make it a little bit easier to maintain your opening repertoire. Basically, what I did in my white games was playing my book that I wrote last year. So that is what I know best. I mean, I always know the book best that I wrote last. So this is what I normally do play. And normally I would have played that, what you mentioned, the Nimzo Rogozin stuff. But I tried to repeat that today. And I saw that Alina is playing the Rogozin herself. So she's an absolute expert. And I felt I cannot really put in, 10 hours and repeat everything. So I went for the somewhat, a little bit stodgy but solid defense. So, this is how it went with the preparation.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I want to buy your book now, that's for sure.
Me too. Well,
Yeah, me too.
we're all going to be playing the Chess Explained repertoire before you know it. Well, Alina, we have one last question for you. You're going to be playing the winner of the match between Elizabeth Petz and Eric Rosen. Are you familiar with either of these players, and who would you rather face? Who is the lesser evil?
Well, of course, I was playing against Elizabeth a couple of times. The last game, I think I lost to her, classical game, but we also played some rapid and blitzes. I don't remember actually the results, but I know her style, she knows mine, so that would be like more common for both of us to play each other. And with whom is she playing? Because I'm sorry, I don't know that.
Yeah, she's playing Eric Rosen. He's also a streamer, international master. Robert, sorry, you were going to say something.
So I'm not familiar with him at all, so I would have to check from the beginning everything.
Well, I just like the diplomatic response of, I'm focused on one match at a time, and I'm sure it's true because, as a competitor, that's what you should be doing. I just want to thank you both again profusely because honestly, it was one of my favorite matches, not just in this event, but of any event to commentate. It was super exciting, and the level of play was extremely high. If you ever want to watch the replay, you can hear Danya and I complimenting both of your play many, many times. And Alina, I look forward to seeing you in the next round. And Christoph, thank you so much for joining us for this great event. And we look forward to seeing more great chess content from you.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thanks for having us. It was good fun.
Thank you guys so much. And well, that was the finale of what was an epic match between IM Kashlinskaya and Christoph Sielecki. That is Chess Explained for those of you who watch instructional content. I mean, it's really great stuff. As you can see, he put his words to practice today and was in a heated battle. But only one winner could be from this match. It was IM Kashlinskaya. She moves on to face the winner of Elizabeth Petz and Eric Rosen. And to remind you of the upcoming schedule, because tomorrow it's a day off. We get
Everybody
Title
needs
Tuesday.
It. We need it.
Everybody needs it. But we're going to be playing, right? Danya, I know you're playing Title Tuesday.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I will not be able to resist, especially after we win this epic match. I feel my competitive urge is flowing, but don't rest too long because on Wednesday, things resume once again.
With Greg Shahade versus Anna Zatonsky. So let me ask you, Danya, while we have the schedule in front of us. Greg is well known. He's a chirper. He's loud. He makes his presence felt. Anna Zatonsky, I have had the privilege of coaching the U.S. women's team. She is a mainstay, a staple of that team. Very just kind person. Not that Greg's not kind, but Anna is very, very kind, not so outspoken, and a fantastic over-the-board blitz player. I've never seen her really play online blitz, but I have seen her play over-the-board blitz. Really fantastic player. So when you look at that next matchup between Greg and Anna, I know Greg's the 5 seed, but this 12-5 seed is the upset special when we talk about brackets. So what do you make of that one?
It's going to be a fascinating match. I second everything you said. Now you asked me when we were watching the first match, who were the favorites for the tournament? I chose Greg as one of the top favorites. I think Greg is, he can say some things, but I think Greg's got the creds to back it up. He's an incredibly practical and strong player. That being said, Anna, tremendous experience in high-stakes tournaments. That means a lot, as we saw, because so much depends on nerves. So don't count anyone out. I can sense another fascinating match, and I can't wait until we meet again on Wednesday. For sure. And what else is upcoming in Chess.com is the state of Chess.com. I think Chess.com is in a great place after that match. I mean, I feel like I'm in a great place. Commentating alongside you, Danya, it's been a pleasure. And the state of Chess.com will be aired April 28th, right after Title Tuesday. So not tomorrow's Title Tuesday, a week from tomorrow. And
Danny Wrench will be talking all the great things that are happening on the site and with the company. So, Danya, I don't know how to wrap it up besides thanking the players one more time and thanking you for being here with me throughout the entire broadcast. I can say it true from my heart, that probably was the most fun I've had in a single broadcast. I've done many of them. That was phenomenal.
Well, likewise, Robert, it's a pleasure to commentate with you. I had so much fun. I think this is why I do this. This was an absolutely epic match, and thanks again to you, Robert. I might roast you occasionally, but you know, you are an amazing commentator, so it was a real pleasure. And thank you to everyone in the chat who added to the energy and to the epic atmosphere. You can't script this any better. This was epic.
Yes, thank you to everybody watching, whether there was on Chess.com TV, YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, you name it. We appreciate every single one of you. And thank you so much for tuning in, for making this possible, because we're here to give you a show. And really, Alina, Christoph did deliver. So thank you once more. We are out. Please enjoy where you're going to be taking next. Stay safe, stay healthy, enjoy chess. Have a happy day, everybody.
Everybody.